What do I want to do with this?
We play and call it work.
Hey there, Wargamers. Welcome to this week's Sit and Talk, the show where we sit and talk. We just answer, your viewer-submitted questions to the best of our abilities. Now, if you watched my Sit and Talks in the past, I usually would try to do it with somebody else because I found them extremely tedious, and they were the type of content that I did not enjoy creating because I wouldn't enjoy watching one person just talk at a camera.
Yeah. Talking to yourself is difficult.
Right. I just never did it well. So today I have with me Philadelphia here, from the Glacial Geek. Actually, you want to plug your channel properly and all of your social medias and everything else?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Phil, the Glacial Geek. I do 40K bat reps and kill team bat reps. You can check me out on YouTube. Is predominantly where most of my content goes up. So you can just go to YouTube, search for Glacial Geek. It'll come up. It'll be the first thing there. But I think it's technically like youtube.com/c/the Glacial Geek or Glacial Geek. I always get it confused whether it's the Glacial Geek or Glacial Geek because I was an idiot when I first started all this stuff and I didn't just keep it standard. Like some are the Glacial Geek and some is Glacial Geek. So I'm really good at that. So far off to a great start. But check me out on YouTube. I also have a Facebook account and an Instagram account. Instagram is mostly just showing my painted models. And Facebook, I post about different various, things that are going on in the Glacial Geekiverse. So I kind of keep post things when I go to tournaments and interesting tidbits, and also post up whenever I post a video. So check it out. But the videos are the most important thing. Check them out on YouTube. So link in the description below. I don't know.
I mean, if you remember, might be in the comments below.
All right, maybe in the comments below.
I'm not going to remember to. I'm not going to remember to put it there.
All right. Well, if it's not in the description below, yell at Josh. So
yell at Phil. Yell at the guy that. Yeah.
Send him hate mail at josh@places.net or something .ca.
You don't have to tell. You don't have to tell these people where to send the hate mail. They already got it. They already got it.
We'll just keep them up and just tell them the Glacial Geek sent you.
Just constant now. So remember that next week is going to be Luca, so you must summon him to the comment section. Luca. And I will say, I've been a little bit disappointed that the compliments I've been asking for people to give Luca have not been, you guys got to hype it up, do better.
Yeah.
Because to be perfectly honest, he gets very embarrassed reading nice things about himself.
Oh, that's even better. That's right. I even forgot about that.
Yeah. He
doesn't like to hear nice things about himself.
He gets super weird about it.
So do it.
He does that little laugh. So let's jump into these. Obviously, I hadn't considered the fact that I was going to pull Phil into this. Literally, I got ready to film it and said, "Hey, Phil, let's go film this. You're done filming your battle report for today." So this is going to be a lot more conversational. So again, leave me feedback. What you guys think as we kind of go through all this stuff. So let's see what we're working with.
All of these with a sense of superiority that I don't actually deserve, and with authority that I also don't have. So I'm gonna do it anyway. I'll answer any question you want to give me.
Two of us doing that. Let's jump right into. We'll start on the MiniWarGaming page. Why not?
Sure.
We got Mandig. Hey Josh, after the recent changes, I'm looking at knights. Can you quickly summarize the difference between Chaos and Imperial, and what might draw someone to either?
So one of them worships the God Emperor on the throne, and the other has sworn against the God Emperor on the throne. So, answered. Let's move on to the next one.
Spiky? Not spiky. They're essentially, they're not the same kits anymore. I was going to say they're the exact same kits, but they're not, because they've got the Rampager kit and all that with the weird...
And I think mostly it's aesthetic choices that are different, but you also have the ability to choose different loadouts than the Imperial kits do. So the Imperial kits are more standard, so you have to choose certain gun and fist or options that you have to do for each kind of layout. So the basic kit can build any of the types of ones, but if you're going to take them, you don't really have the ability to swap them up as much for each individual knight. Whereas I think the Chaos Knight, they have...
You can double up on a lot of the weapon options and that. Yeah. So the Chaos, you have a little bit more versatility in your loadouts overall. The Imperial ones, it feels like there's a lot more variety, but that's just because every loadout has its own name.
Yes. I guess that's what it comes down to. They just have the war dogs, and you can either choose the guns, or you can choose the close combat and the melta. Whereas the Imperials have two separate entries for them. So you've
But
got
they're-
the Hellverns and the Warglaives.
Which
so
are
you can
locked
have
in, though, because
Yeah, they're
I'm pretty
locked
sure
in
the
what you
Chaos
choose.
ones you can go
That's why
do a
the
close
Wardogs,
combat
yes.
weapon and an autocannon.
Oh, really?
Which
Okay, that'd be
I
cool.
think you can. I'm not 100% sure.
But I know they have like the one entry for it, and they have those options there. So you're right. I think they have less options, but they have more versatility in the options. Whereas the Imperials, which I mean makes sense with the Administratum being as punctilious as they are, that you've got to have a specific name for each type of unit.
Right, and then so obviously, if you look at it, the Imperium, the Imperial Knights, like some of their stratagems are tied into like a Knight Errant does this.
Yeah, so then we get very specific as to like what kind of loadout you're really looking at for those.
So
things.
honestly, what it comes down to for me, whenever people ask this kind of stuff, like if you're what might draw somebody to one or the other, I think gameplay wise, they are a similar enough basic gameplay style of low model count, big robots running around.
Yeah.
We've talked a little bit about some of the rules differences, but like I said, generally they're pretty similar. Yeah. I think the big thing is that would draw somebody one to the other is the aesthetics of them. So like, do you want that corrupted kind of Chaos Knight look, or do you want something a little bit more, I don't know, standardized feeling almost, like the
and
the
also
Imperial
depends
stuff.
on how if you're going to be painting and modeling them yourselves, think about what kind of style you prefer to do. I think that Chaos holds itself open to a lot more grungy look. It holds itself a lot more open to a lot more conversions and things. You can do that with Imperial as well. It's just Chaos almost asks for it, because you can even see it in their bespoke kits, because you can convert any of the Imperial kits into Chaos Knights, which is what
Easy
they were
enough,
originally. Yeah. But even if you look at the bespoke kits that GW came out with for Chaos Knights, they're beat up, they're damaged, because they're meant to be like dragged through hell and back. So I think if that's the kind of look that appeals to you, or if that's the kind of modeling that appeals to you, then maybe Chaos is the way to go with it. Whereas if you like the parade ground, polish and shine, then definitely go with the Imperial, because they're the only ones that get a wash. I don't think the Chaos Knights get a
They're just filthy.
Yeah.
I guess it depends how many pots of shade you want to go through when you're doing your knights.
Yeah, if you want
how
a lot
dirty.
more shade, then you're gonna go with the Chaos. So. I think gameplay wise, there's bits and pieces, like certain stratagems are good for better or worse than others. But I think at the end of the day, the real main difference is mostly aesthetic and also allies. So if you have, if you're just starting out like a knight army and you have a bunch of, Imperial armies, you can build and paint one of the knights, and if you want to get it on the table quick, you've got the rest you can fill with an allied Imperial Guard detachment or a Space Marine detachment, whatever. And you might lose some of the wounds, but some of the rules, but who cares? At that point, you're just really having fun with it. You're not looking for like the meta, the spear point of the bleeding point of the spear of the meta. So if you're doing that, if you already have Imperial stuff, it might make sense to do an Imperial Knight army, because you can get it on the table quicker, because you don't need to build and paint as many knights in order to get them onto there for your army size, or vice versa. So if you have Chaos Space Marines or you have demons or whatever, you can do that with the knights as well. So it's a small consideration. If you're planning to do a whole army, you don't have to worry about allies. But if it
just to get started, you can do the counterpoint of you're like, hey, you know what, I really. I play a lot of Imperium, and I want to start some Chaos stuff, but I don't know where to start. I'm kind of waiting. Like, obviously, neither Chaos Knights or Imperial Knights have gotten their new books yet. But you might be going like, I want to play Chaos, but like they haven't updated the rules. They're going to be a big update probably when they eventually come, so I don't know what I want to do. I'll buy Chaos Knight. Yeah. That's how I'm going to get started. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of options there either way, but the Imperial ones are way cooler, and you should just get them instead. House Mortan. There's not many House Mortan players out there.
I like that House Raven only, but I mean, I'm House Geek really for my paint scheme, because I just paint them however I want to in most of the blues. But
is that your preferred, like for the, because you've got your preferred
like
is Raven.
I do like it. And, I mean, I like sitting back and just shooting things, than having like the one aggressive punchy knight that just like runs up while everyone else just sits back and goes douche, 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 douche.
It's a very original take on that, though.
Exactly.
As you're drinking your pumpkin spice latte.
Well, okay. I mean, I'm sitting there and I'm like, how do I become a Gundam fighter? And that's what I do. So I go and I get the knights and I sit back and I just shoot them away. And then I have the one guy who's the main character who runs up and punches something in the face, and we call it good. So, if I want to get into the minutia of moving a million models, I'll do my Gene Stealer cult. But if I just want to be like stompy robots, have fun, and shoot things, then yeah, that's what I go with.
So when you start something new, because here's the first of our tangents. So let's say you were unfamiliar with knights.
Yes.
And you wanted to start a knight list. Do you start by looking at different established schemes, or do you start by looking at the rules?
Oh man, So I don't go with established schemes because I just paint however I want to.
Okay.
And that's kind of the aesthetic that I always go with. It's like I choose the models that I think look coolest. I paint them how I think they're going to look coolest. And then from there I go, let's see what happens. So especially with knights, there's always where you can go with like the established scheme if that's how you want to go with it. The other way is to create your own paint scheme and run them with whatever rules appeal to you.
Okay, so I guess let's switch gears a little bit, because that makes sense for what you're doing, but doesn't get down to what I'm looking for. So you're starting knights. Would you start by looking at the rules for the different knight houses, or just building the kits you think look the coolest and then figuring out the rules later?
Kits that are the coolest, for sure. Yeah, because that's gonna get you locked into it more. Like cool rules are cool, but cool models are cooler. And cool models are what are going to get you to actually do an army. They're going to be the ones that are going to motivate you to build, motivate you to paint, motivate you to play, because you're like, look at this rad thing that I've got. I want to see it on the table. I want to roll dice with it and just have fun with it. And then after that, you go, all right, now I'll figure out what needs tweaking. Because you can always expand if you need to, but just having like the tightest meta pieces isn't going to be enough. Rules aren't going to be enough to really like latch you into an army or not, especially if you're just picking something up like that. And with the new rules, I mean, now that they've got OBSEC and they count for it, they can actually compete in 9th edition gameplay where you need to hold objectives. Because previously, the reason they did well in 8th or other editions was because they're stompy robots that kill things very well. Now, you need to be able to hold objectives, and suddenly they weren't able to do that. But the changes, I think, make them like a viable,
suddenly they
fun...
can again,
suddenly
right?
They can again. So now they can compete. Now they're fun, which is why it's a perfect time to, like, if you're looking into doing it, pick it up because see what happens. Also, at this point, all the rules could completely change when their codex comes out. So, that's why I always suggest getting the things that you think look cool because, rules are going to change every single edition. Rules are going to change possibly every week. I mean, the balancing rule just came out. So the rules are going to change. The models are not. So if you like the model, you're always going to like the model. You're not going to not like the model just because the rules aren't what you wish them to be. So I always go cool model over cool rules and then figure it out from there.
That all makes sense. Next up, we got Pellinor. Hey, Josh and Phil.
Hey.
How's your day going? My day's going well.
Yeah,
Phil, how's your good day?
Yeah,
good day today?
I filmed a really fun bat rep today, so yeah.
So tell me, what's your gaming history? You can start us off on this one.
Okay.
What's your gaming history here?
My gaming history. So I first got into 40K briefly when I was probably like 11 or 12. This is like back in 2nd edition. So I'm dating myself a little bit, I guess. 11 or 12, I got into the 2nd edition. I thought they were cool. Like my cousin's friend was playing with them. I thought they were rad. I decided I wanted to pick up some models, bought way too many models and got, from, asking my parents and whatever to buy me stuff. Started painting some of them like awfully. Like, I mean, like, oof. My wife, I have some of them still around and my wife calls them my melty cowboys because they're the scions or the stormtroopers and they're globbed on paint. So they look like they're melting. And they're done in this urban camo, which just makes them look like cows.
So they're Nurgle.
Like black and white. They basically
they're Nurgle cultists.
But it was like where I felt like if I messed up doing the eyes, I just painted on sunglasses onto them. It's great. They're ridiculous. They're awful, but I love them and I love to like reference it back. But the thing was, my friends didn't want to get into it, didn't want to play it. So, of course, when you're like 11 or 12 and your friends don't play a thing, you don't play a thing either. Like, that's just the way it goes. It's like an unstated rule that if your friends aren't doing it, you're not going to do it. So, I ended up just putting them in a box, ended it in my dad's basement for like a decade. So, fast forward to, I guess, towards the end of 6th edition, almost into 7th edition, and I moved up to Alaska. And one of my friends at the office where I work there comes up to me and goes, so, I noticed you have some Marvel bobbleheads in your cubicle. You must be a nerd. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, have you ever heard of a game called Warhammer 40,000? And I was like, oh, I have. I tried to play it when I was a kid, never really got into it. And he's like, well, would you want to see what it's like now? And I was like, oh, man, I don't know. It's a lot of money, a lot of time. I don't know if I have the ability to do that. And he's like, tell you what, just come over, play a game, see what it's like, see if you like it. Go from there. I was like, sure, fine. First one's always free. That's the way it works. Even plastic crack, the push, gets you in there. Went over, played the game. Literally the next day, went out and bought the 6th edition starter set and started back up. Called my dad and said, hey, Dad, that box of models that's been sitting in your basement for like decades, can you ship it up to me in Alaska? And he said, sure, get that out of my basement. Started playing, and then it was like right at the end of 6. I think I may have gotten like 1 or 2 games of 6, and then it kicked into 7.
What was the 6th edition starter? Was that the Dark Angel one?
Dark Vengeance, yeah.
Okay.
So that's why, I'm a Dark Angel player, so that's why. And I like Green Marine, so I like green, the color. So I was like, perfect, I've got them all here, so that worked for me. So that's how I started up, was because a friend asked me if I played it, and I happened to have painted some of them back in the day, so... started in, and then obviously now I've gotten a little into the deep end. I run my own YouTube channel for it. So, that was my origin story of gaming.
So with mine, I was in high school, so grade like 9 or 10, and I ended up crashing at my buddy's place, and actually, so I lived on the other side of Welland.
Okay.
He lived on this side of Welland, and down the road from the MiniWarGaming studios right now, there used to be a store that went out of business like 20 years ago called Starscape Games. And we walked there because we had no idea. We knew that there was a gaming store, but we had no idea what was up. So we went there. Because the only real stuff I did is I played like a lot of Magic the Gathering.
Okay.
And I say a lot, but not actually a lot in the grand scheme of things. So we went there, and they were playing the Mech Warrior Dark Age Clicks game, the WizKids one. You remember this?
Yeah.
And we were like, this is cool.
Yeah.
And those were the ones where you couldn't just buy whatever models you wanted. You had to buy the booster packs.
Yeah. The blind boosters. I used to do Hero Clicks.
Okay, so like the sister game, right? So we bought some of that and started playing that. And so I used to go there every week or whatever it was to play in the tournaments. Because there was little organized events that happened all the time. So I played that until the point that we were getting kind of bored of it, and that was around the time that the Flyers started to come out, I think, like the first helicopters and all that, which I have no idea what expansion that was. And there was another guy there that had dabbled into 40K, and then we all jumped into that and started playing 40K. So I played 40K on and off for a little while. Fast forward to grade 11. The day after the day before my 16th birthday. I think it was the day before. I had made the ill-informed decision. I'm like, you know what? I'm not really a sports guy.
Yeah.
I did a lot of judo growing up, but I'm like, whatever. Like, I'm going to join the football team.
Okay.
And so the first scrimmage, so not even a game, first scrimmage against one of the other schools here in Welland. And long story short, I got my leg snapped in half.
Ooh.
So compound tib fib.
Oh.
And just an awful experience. Yeah. And I end up in the hospital, rough time in the hospital. And then I've got a cast on for, I think it was 7 or 8 months. Not a lot of mobility, so played a lot more Warhammer. And it was my Warhammer buddies that I hung out with more than anybody else. And then, so played kind of on and off for a little while. And then... See, I jumped game systems a lot more. You pretty much stuck with 40K, right?
I've basically been 40K and Kill Team, but mostly 40K.
So when 5th edition came out, because I played fairly heavily in 4th.
Okay.
So 5th edition comes out, I get kind of, not my cup of tea. I don't really like the edition. And I jump over to War Machine.
Okay.
I play War Machine a bunch, and that gets me connected to MiniWarGaming, and kind of the rest is history from there.
Nice.
So I've played a ton of different games. The joke was that I didn't start playing Warhammer again until they paid me to do it.
Yeah, fair enough.
That's what it took to get me back into it.
I mean, even to this day, you're the one who plays all of, like, the smaller, like...
Yeah, I'm the one that tends to because I collect all these other little random games that nobody else wants to play.
Yeah.
And occasionally I'm able to force people to play them with me.
That's your ability. That's your power.
That was the reason behind getting seeking a management position.
Yeah.
Is so that I could force people to play these games.
It says it in your schedule. I don't know what to tell you.
That's how it is, guys. I'm odd. Quite often hear you quote, "Take that, you fiend." Apparently that's a Tunnels and Trolls spell. And did I ever play? No, I never played.
Yeah,
I heard that somewhere and I thought it was funny. And
Gotcha.
I'm kind of just I'm a parrot, basically.
I mean, also, like, there's, if you are a nerd and you are in nerd, situations, you definitely have, like, cultural osmosis with nerd stuff that you just, like, absorb different things that you just kind of, like, understand even though you've never done it, you've never really understood. So, but yeah, that's interesting.
All right, this one, don't have much to say about that. Hey Josh, I want to thank you and everyone at MiniWarGaming, and now it could be the Glacial Geek as well.
Welcome. I'll take that thing.
For introducing me to the hobby. Pilot Beastclaw Raiders was how I decided to get into the hobby, and Warhammer and MiniWarGaming especially have helped me a lot in these times, so thank you. As for my question, and sorry, this is from Stormclaw Raiders.
Nice.
What are be some things you'd like to see for ogres in the future? So let's talk a little bit about AOS. I think honestly, new kits, and I'm not super picky with what. Like, I'd like to see the Beastclaw Raiders expanded out because they're my favorite part of the mod tribes.
Yeah.
They're going to continue to always be. More big dumb monsters. I just want more stupid monsters because everything that exists right now, and you might know this as well.
Come out with those giant.
Well, they've got the giants, but that's just destruction in general. So that's not ogres.
Oh, I thought
they're Sons of Behemoth. They're their own faction.
Okay, well there you go. That shows what I know.
we're getting Phil into this. So the big thing for me is that all of the models, and I like the models that currently exist for the Beast Claws, except the cats look awful.
Okay.
The Yetis, they're bad.
Okay.
They were bad when they first came out, like 12 years ago or whatever.
Yeah.
They haven't gotten any better.
Fair enough.
So some updated sculpts for those would be super nice. But yeah, more big dumb monsters, because everything that currently exists, I think for the entire Ogre Maw Tribe's army, except for one Tyrant model, it's all Warhammer Fantasy models.
Okay.
They haven't gotten anything new.
Just swap to the circle bases.
100%. That's all it was. And they stayed on, because a lot of the factions went from having 25 mil bases to 32.
Yeah.
Or whatever other swaps. They just stayed on 40s. They kept being ogres. So that was kind of cool. And yeah, so I'd like to see more big dumb monsters and some updated sculpts. But overall, I think that, I don't know, that's still a really good model line. It still holds up fairly well. And I don't want them to go to the super dynamic monopose kind of stuff. I like my just, kind of clunky, you can swap the arms out ogres. Now, is there anything, because you've started looking at different factions for AOS.
Yes.
Is there anything that you're like, oh, I would love to see them do a this for that?
I don't think I know enough to ask for that quite yet. But I will say that I have wanted to do AOS for a long time just because of how cool the new models that they've been coming out with. Like, each step, all of their new stuff has, I don't think I've seen a single model that's come out that I've been like, that looks awful. They've been doing a really awesome job. And I know you don't like the monopose dynamic shots, but I love the monopose dynamic. Like, I don't need the swappability because my hobby abilities, I don't ever feel confident enough to cut up and change up my models. So I don't look to like change things up. So I'm like, you give me the directions, I will build them. And if they look cool based upon how the directions tell me to build them, I'm fine. That sounds great to me because I don't trust myself to mess around with an expensive model kit. So I love to see what they've done with like the dynamic poses, the way they've got different things like supporting them, like making it look like they're leaping in the air and being supported by different stuff. I think they look cool. So a lot of the newer, obviously the newer models always look cooler, like just look rad, unless you've got like a sentimental reason to look back. Because like no one thinks that the Marines that got their guns like this that are monopose like one after the other look cooler than the Marines, like than some of the assault intercessors that are coming at you with their chain swords and bull pistols, So I like the newer models. Okay, you're like curmudgeon over here. You're curmudgeon, like, give me more.
monopose I don't like, but it's the one where like everybody's sergeant has the exact same pose, and like if you have three of the same squads in the same army, all three of your sergeants are like, all right, boys, we're going to battle. Take the same pose.
That's true.
So
it's photo day.
It's photo day. For me, it's the kits where like if you look at. I'm gonna try to use a somewhat modern kit. The Mark III Space Marines. Okay.
Yeah.
So Mark III Space Marines. They've got the setup where like they're fairly set poses, but the torso is separate from the legs.
Yeah.
Both the arms are separate, and you put the weapon in, and the head. So like it's very easy to have, like I said, you can have a bunch of guys that basically have their bolters on slightly different angles and how they're holding them, and you can just kind of tweak the way the head's looking, and then you've got a bunch of unique models, as opposed to everybody's got the bolter the exact same way and their head the exact same way.
I got you.
That's the stuff that I kind of.
I guess, I mean, I say I don't like messing with models. I do switch the heads a bit. Like when they just have the pin in there, I'll very often or the peg. I'll
and then just clip that and
just clip that and just like twist them around in the slot there, and that usually works out. So I do hear you there, but I don't know. They just look rad when you see like that cool monopose. I think it's also I don't really run a lot of the same things, so I'm used to just having. I mean, that's just because I like to have like one of everything. Just because of the way I like to do it. So I can see if you were running something that needed a lot of a certain thing that they all look very similar at that point. I can see that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like it doesn't have to be because. Excuse me, my hobby capability is low, which is part of the reason why I kind of grumble about some of the newer kits.
Yeah.
Then, like, if I do want to change the pose ever so slightly,
it takes more work to change the pose of the current one or the new one.
Well, yeah, because when you put them together, like one piece is like the guy's arm holding the pistol, but also part of the torso and his right leg.
Yeah. And
where it's like, I got to put it together, then cut it, and then.
I hear you. Yeah, and I hear you. I like that, but.
This might get more and more interesting as we get deeper into whatever topics we end up getting into, because I think you're the eternal optimist and I'm the eternal pessimist on stuff.
That's true. I am the eternal optimist. I've been told that before. There's a lot of people on my channel always comment, especially when I do like these sit and talks, that it's always like, this seems cool because to me it does. So I'm always like, this seems cool. I could see where this would be rad. I could see where this would be cool. This would be awesome. And it's like, eternal optimist, you're right.
Yeah, so I get more of the like, heck yeah, man. Screw them for doing that. I agree with you. I'm annoyed too. Yeah. I'm disgruntled.
Yeah, I get accused of being, like a GW apologist, and it's like, no, it's a game that I legitimately enjoy playing, and like I think it's cool what like the stuff that gets.
Well, I think it's cool too. It's just I'm very aware of what they could be doing better.
Yeah.
And of course, what they could be doing better, it's entirely based on my opinion.
Yeah. Oh, that's true.
I apparently am the one with all the answers.
Arbiter of good taste. Yeah. I mean, that's fair enough. Like my friends always joke about how I don't like I'm the worst critic when it comes to movies. So when they say like I like a movie, they're like, great. So that just means it was a movie.
Yes, there was.
Yeah. If I say
it wasn't a still picture.
Yeah, it wasn't a still picture. It was a movie. Great. But if I don't like a movie, then that there was something wrong with that. So But yeah, that's the same thing. Where it's like I take things for what they are, and I appreciate them for what they are, as opposed to what they could be, I guess. So that's where I get the optimism from all that.
Next we have Emma Woods, 007. Josh, how was your day? My day as well, because I have my buddy Phil here, and we're doing a sit and talk together. Hey. And this is hopefully this is like more entertaining for you guys, because it's more entertaining for me. So hopefully this is, because I think a lot of people like to sit and paint as they listen to these. So hopefully this is more entertaining for you.
Yeah, you can hear two different voices in your ear while you're sitting there painting. You missed a spot. Check it.
You upset somebody. Now.
I did. I'm sorry. You did.
Now they're cleaning their brush off, so they go back to that color.
Back to that base coat. Hey, at least I caught it before you moved on to the next step. So think about that.
Next we got Bill Dredd. Hi Josh. It's been interesting to see a few bolt action bat reps on MiniWarGaming. I think I still prefer the setting of 40k, but it is fun to get a bit of variety now and then. Which bolt action faction do you think would benefit the most from the addition of las cannons? Okay, so actual answer, I guess it doesn't matter because the factions are all remarkably well balanced because they all have access to very similar stuff. Yeah, but I want my Americans. I want my Americans to have las cannons.
Yeah, there you go.
That just I don't know that seems to fit.
Yeah. Overpowered and explosive.
But I imagine that there wouldn't be a whole lot of recoil to it, and it wouldn't like actually make a big enough noise.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
So like also now I'm like, that doesn't sound as cool.
They would go in for like volcano cannons. I feel like that's what they would go for.
I imagine it almost being more orky, where it's like, look how big and dumb and how much noise it makes. They're like, but you can have something much more efficient. They're like, loud.
Wow, did you just call the Americans orcs?
Yeah, in the best way possible.
They do love their DECA.
I don't know if it exists up here, but I have looked, because you're not allowed to buy suppressors in Canada whatsoever for any reasons. And I don't know if it's legal up here, but I know that there's a company that for a while was making loudners.
Loudners, okay.
And I wanted to get one so bad. And be like, they look super entertaining. And because I think I was looking at it. I want to say they were making them for a couple of the rifles that I owned.
Okay.
But I'm not entirely sure. But yeah. That would be entertaining. Yeah. Now, okay, so have you ever dabbled in bolt action?
I've never played bolt action. I know about it, and I've seen games of it. I mean, you're going to put me down
want to?
Anyway.
Because guess what? I can just force you to, because I get to write your schedule while you're here. I'm a tyrant. Yeah. Okay, but yeah, no, joking aside, like, have you ever looked into it enough to be like, to decide if that's a game you want to try or not?
So I will say that I'm less drawn to the historical gaming like that, like bolt action or even like the more like traditional historical miniatures, just because I like building my own narrative. I like building my own thoughts, and I feel like that holds itself much more open to it in a world that's completely fiction. You know, like Sigmar has not walked upon the earth. You know, the Emperor has not.
There's a lot of books talking about what he's done, though.
Yeah, that's true.
So I'm saying that there's already a bunch of established history.
That is true.
It's different,
it
but
is different, and I like that difference. But I also like, like in I just feel like there's a tendency more in the historical wargaming towards accuracy. And don't get me wrong, I get enough comments about my green Ravenwing bikes to know that there are a lot of people that are big sticklers for the lore, for the set canon in the fantasy worlds of like 40K and Age of Sigmar. But I feel like if I tried to come in with like bright red Germans, that people would be like, that's, like, get out of my gaming store. I don't want to see them on the table. More so than if I have my bright blue knights that I like, Imperial knights that I can run around.
Well, I mean, like let's say your bright blue blood angels.
Yeah, that's true.
I think there'd be a lot of people that go, no, that's not.
That's true. There might be some people that like that, but
I think that there might be. Yeah, so I think looking more
historical, because, and it's also, it's also the fact that, like, you hear the word historical and you think history, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Versus, other wargaming where people might be lore, like, specific and, want to adhere more to, the specifics that have been established with Games Workshop. But I feel like there's less of an immediate call for that, especially, like, there's, you can always make your own chapter, and they encourage you to make your own chapters. You can make your own Imperial Guard regiment, because there's millions of planets and somebody's made one that looks the way you want them to look. Whereas, if I want to run Germans that were different, like, people are going to be less inclined to, support that, because, it's based upon real things that happened, with real looks that happened. And that's what I think. That's why I feel less inclined towards it. I'm sure the mechanics are fun. I've heard good things about it, but it's more the setting, I think, that I don't find myself drawn to, as opposed to the game itself as a game. Okay, so this makes this is why I like to do it this way. So hopefully, again, you guys are entertained by this. So this leads me into a lot of my talking points that I've had about the historicals that I play. Because I think there's definitely a distinction in different types of historicals. In the same way that you look at 40K and go match play and open play or native play, like they're completely different. Yeah. So I use my bolt action Americans as an example. Yeah. That I've purposely not put any insignia on them. Because when people ask, hey, what regiment is that? No. Like, what are they supposed to be based on? I go, there's paratroopers. They're like, yeah, I know, but are they, 82nd? Are they 101st? Like, what are they? And I go, they're paratroopers. Gotcha. So I say that I view bolt action, and I have fun with it, as a historically inspired war game. Okay. Yeah. And that's the terminology I'm using more and more than historical, is that I'm playing as a historically inspired game. It's based in real world history, but you can kind of do whatever you want with it. There's definitely people that, because it's a sliding scale, that they want to do more. Like, they don't want to have the Americans and the British fight, because they're like, whatever. But then there's a large portion of the audience that's like, I've enjoyed collecting my army and theming it a certain way, but I don't care what I play against. It doesn't hurt my immersion. Yeah.
So that's where, I do challenge people, such as yourself, that, if you want to try something like that out, there's a decent audience for it out there, I think, that just enjoy playing the game and can have that suspension of disbelief. Now, that being said, there's other parts of it that I usually refer to as the rivet counters.
Okay.
Where it's like, well, actually, you know what I mean?
I mean, to be fair, there are rivet counters in,
100% it exists in 40K,
The number of comments I get about my green Ravenwing, that people have questions about, or, whatever. Like, if I want to have, the Gene Stealer cult fighting against, the Tyranids, and they're like, they would have just given up and rolled over. It's like, well, not in this case.
I guess something else happened, and here we go. We're playing with our toys, with whatever. Because I get into the same thing with Horse Heresy players sometimes.
Yeah, that's almost like historical wargaming in the 40K universe.
It is, and I mean, like, it's not perfect because at the end of the day, people should just have fun, whatever.
Yeah.
And there's certain stuff that might take you out of the immersion. Like if people have their Primaris models, I'm like, meh.
Yeah.
That doesn't really. I don't love it, but whatever. I'd still probably play the game. But the ones that get super upset and they're like, you're using Mars pattern rhinos instead of Demos pattern rhinos, and now my immersion's broken. And I'm like, well, guess what? Mars made a lot of rhinos. They've been making them for a while. Do you not think that some of the legions would have Mars pattern? And especially, when you get in different marks of armor where it's like, wow, you get a Mark 7 character. No, I'm super upset. And I'm like, well, they were manufacturing that near the end of the heresy. Yeah. Like, that was a thing. Wasn't super widespread, but maybe I'm playing as Blood Angels and we're playing at the Siege. That's what my army's themed upon, and maybe some important people might have had this Mark 7. You run into that all the time. So when I force you to play bolt action, keep that in mind as we're going through.
I've played some lesser, like, what is it? It's it's almost like a board game, but they've got like the sort of miniatures, something 47 maybe, I can't remember.
Conflict 47?
Conflict 47 maybe,
because that's just bolt action in an expansion.
No, that's not what I'm thinking.
Is it Dust?
No. It's literally a board game. So they've got like hex board, and it's like based in World War II stuff, and you kind of move miniatures, but it's on hexes. And
how big are the miniatures? Like, is it
smaller, like the smaller scale ones?
Smaller scale.
So whatever. I've played historical games or historically inspired games, and the mechanics are always a determinant of whether I'll have fun or not. But I think to determine whether or not I would want to get into and build and paint and collect, that was going to be determined by where I feel like I have the ability to kind of do what I want, So, because even along, like I said, my Dark Angels, I standard with green, but I also paint my bikes green because I like green. So I don't want to paint the black for the bikes because I think it looks better as green. I like the green.
Yep.
And that kind of stuff where it's like, I'm going to paint what I want to paint because they're my models. And then I feel like that holds itself open as a hobby, more so in less historically inspired games. And that's also the other thing, like you said, with 30K, why like the Horse Heresy stuff, like there's much more of an adherence to the established lore because it's happened. You know what I mean? Like, based in the 40K universe, it's happened. Like, there's no really change in the history. Whereas 40K, you can always change it. So they even help ask you to do so. Like they say with like in the Dark Angels, you can actually take a captain and upgrade him to Chapter Master, in the book. And they say, in this world, it's either an alternate universe where Azrael didn't become Chapter Master, or it's a little bit in the future and Azrael has passed away and they've installed a new Chapter Master, And I feel like that kind of, like the ability to just kind of do what you like is more held open in a world that like is currently happening, where the lore is still developing and you can have this impact where it's like, it hasn't happened yet, but it could. You never know. Like, this could happen in the future. Azrael could fight off against a bunch of Necrons on the table because who knows? He might run across them because there's a fallen. Yeah,
the Psyker did it.
Yeah, exactly. Cypher did it. Cypher got him over there. That's always the easy one to get. But that's why I and it's it might just be a weird thing on my end where it's like I don't want to rewrite history, but I could just write history.
Well, the flip side is that a K-47 is a game.
Yeah.
Which is the Weird War expansion.
Oh, yes.
So that gets into where it's like...
It already detaches itself from history at that point.
It's already...
I feel like
where
I would find myself more
drawn to
something like that than I would to just like a historical thing where it's like you're rewriting history versus that where it's like, this history never happened, never will happen, so have fun writing it because who knows, So.
Maybe we'll try some K-47. The rules are slightly different.
Yeah.
but I either
the idea of werewolf.
may ignore that.
I've seen some of those things that they
There's
have.
some really cool
There's
minis
some
in
cool
there.
stuff there. Yeah, I can see that.
I got my American Walkers. And,
Nice. Yeah, exactly. I like those.
Okay, we got K Cook.
Oh, and I think that the Germans would probably have a las cannon. Let's be honest. They had some pretty crazy stuff.
They did have some actually pretty wacky stuff going on. If you look at like some of the actual historical stuff where it's like, oh, that's a cool K-47 thing, and I'm like, no, they actually had those.
That's a crazy thing the Germans had there. So yeah, I think that if anyone's gonna have them, it probably would have been the Germans at the end with the las cannon. So
fair.
To answer the question that we just rambled off on.
Yeah. The tangent.
Yeah. You brought me here for.
Yeah, 100%. And again, hopefully the people's like it.
If you want succinct, you don't bring Phil.
K Cook, but point.
I don't know.
Any plans for live bat reps for Age of Sigmar? No plans yet, but I would be surprised if we didn't get there before too long. Yeah, probably. Because all the Age of Sigmar I can get right now, because obviously there's way more guests that volunteer to come in for 40K than any other game system. So it's much easier to get 40K stuff, so I don't mind being like, hey, yeah, if you're going to do 40K, just go do a live one, because we have plenty of other ones. With Age of Sigmar, if there's a chance for Age of Sigmar, I'm like, no, I need that for my schedule.
Yeah.
So it will end up happening eventually, though. There's just no current plans. Okay, this last one we got here that addresses me in one way or another is Kevin asks, I was late to submit this one last time, but here it is. Josh, once again, thank you for playing that Kragnos Ogres list. Not once, but twice. I've actually played it thrice. And I don't know, we might... I think I'm going to go rogue and just keep playing it every once in a while, even though, like, usually we get in trouble for playing the same list, like, more than twice. Because it's just kind of fun. So it's the list is Kragnos.
Okay.
Because it's technically
That's the crazy centaur like guy. Yeah.
Yeah. The god model for destruction.
Where he's just like,
it's 725 points of just like insanity.
Yeah.
Bundo Whale Biter, which is the big Kraken Eater, Man Eater.
Okay.
Or, no, sorry, not Man Eater, Mega Gargant. Mm-hmm. So those two together are like 1,200-ish points.
2,000 point list.
Okay. In a 2,000 point list, that's an ogre list, technically.
Okay.
So more than half the list is an ogres.
Okay.
And then it's a Frostlord on Stonehorn.
Okay.
So the big dumb cow.
Okay.
A Icebrow Hunter, who is the one in charge. He's the general.
Okay.
And 4 units of 2 cats.
Okay.
That's the list. It's super fun. So thank you for bringing that list to my attention, because again, it was more fun than it should be. As far as changing anything, no, I'm pretty happy with how it plays right now. I might tweak around. I mean, like the only change, because it's pretty tight because you don't have as much versatility in list building as you do as a game like 40K.
Yeah.
So there's not a whole lot I can tweak. I like Bundo. I'd have to look at the other named Mega Gargants to see if I like their abilities more.
Yeah.
But probably not. But I might try one of them, and then there's not a whole lot else you can change, because I like the Winter Ranger. Gives me extra command points because my hunter can start not on the board.
Yeah.
And he actually gives you extra command points every turn.
Yeah.
For not being on the board, you get D3.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Which is hilarious.
Yeah.
And then Craig, because he's the general, so normally you wouldn't get the 1 for having a general on the board.
But now you're getting D3.
Kragnos also counts as being the general.
Oh,
so Kragnos is on the board, so you're getting like D3 plus 1 instead of
instead of
1.
Yeah, that's not bad.
And the list, like all 3 of the big monsters are characters, so they can freely use a ton of different command point stuff. So, yeah it's stupid fun. That sound like a list you'd want to play against eventually?
Sounds like a list I would want to play, where it's just like I don't have to worry about knowing the rules for like 1,000 different models.
Maybe I can show you it, because it's pretty simple. There's a lot of like fun little subtleties, and you got to make sure you guys are in the right spot. But it's basically 3 big monsters. That the slowest one I think goes 11 inches. No, 10 inches with Kragnos. But yeah, it plays fast. Yeah. Just wants to charge, be super aggressive. It's decent at holding objectives. Because both Kragnos and Bundo, the Mega Gargant, count as 5 models for being monsters. And then the Stonehorn, actually, which is the smallest of them, counts as 10. Okay. Because it's a Maw Tribes list. Yeah. And you get to use the Maw Tribes rules. So it's a lot of fun. Yeah. I'll get you playing the list at some point. Added question for this time. Are you excited for the Total War Warhammer 3 Ogre Kingdoms? And what about it? Sincerely, your biggest fans, Kevin and family from Osaka, Japan.
Oh, nice.
Okay, so I discovered fairly recently, and I always suspected it. I'm really bad at Total War.
Oh yeah, I'm really bad at video games. Full stop. But it doesn't mean I don't play them.
So, because I'm gonna throw him under the bus. I don't even know if he watches, but I got a buddy that I play video games with online.
Yeah.
And routinely, I'm usually better at them than him.
Okay.
But like, he just beats me up so bad when we play Total War. We've only played a couple times, and I'm sure like I can't get any worse. I would probably get better, but in the like 4 or 5 matches we played, like it's awful.
Yeah.
So I am excited for Total War Warhammer 3 Ogre Kingdoms. I'll play that campaign. I'll play the heck out of it.
Yeah.
And then maybe I'll be able to beat my buddy. Probably not, but it'll be cooler watching me, watching my forces get destroyed.
Yeah, there you go.
Because they're just big fat guys, and I think that's super. I don't know. It's an entertaining faction to me.
That sounds fun.
All right, we're gonna jump over. Actually, you know what? Let's do the Facebook route because we're gonna have a discussion, me and you, about some stuff that Matt said last week in his title. I don't know. I didn't watch his video.
Okay.
But we're gonna chat a little bit maybe.
Okay.
We got Kevin Muhammad. Josh, consider playing other armies besides ogres for Warhammer Fantasy Battles. I had. Did you ever play fantasy? Did you get into fantasy? You never got on the fantasy train?
No.
So you've known Steve for this long and he's never dragged you into fantasy?
I know, it's surprising. I'm surprised he hasn't.
You can tell he doesn't write the schedule.
Exactly. So yeah, I also it's like I can do 40K and I can do whatever you really want me to, but if you want me to be good, it's gonna have to be 40K.
When I got hired on by MiniWarGaming because they covered a lot of different game systems.
Yeah.
And I knew most of them.
Yeah.
So the ones that I actively was doing for MiniWarGaming when I first got hired was actually 40K was the only one that I was kind of iffy on.
Yeah.
But I knew fantasy. I dabbled enough in Age of Sigmar to be able to do Age of Sigmar. Let me think. X-Wing Armada.
Okay.
So both of those. War Machine and Hordes. Horse Heresy, obviously. And those were like, I think that was the gambit of what MiniWarGaming was covering on the regular at that point.
Asking for you, yeah.
And so remain competent enough to do videos in all of these game systems. So I think my job's getting a little bit easier over the years of not having to remember them all. But I think I still play a bunch more that we don't cover right now.
Yeah. The models for a lot more that don't cover at your desk. So.
Honestly, like I think I just take the models and lay them out and be like, what game systems do you think these are from? Cool? Does this look familiar to you even? Do you have any idea what this is? I had bought the Wood Elves and I put not a ton of effort into getting the Wood Elves kind of ready for the table. And I just realized like I have, with what I do for MiniWarGaming, like I don't have the time to learn them properly and play them a ton. So I ended up just selling them to Steve because he's got his collection of many different fantasy armies, and they were looking for Wood Elves. I know how much of a pain they were to get a hold of. Yeah. They went to Steve because it just made sense at this point. So I doubt, like, fantasy is fun enough, but if my time and resources is going into other game systems right now, like Victory at Sea, Black Seas, Blood Red Skies, a multitude of other games that you don't know.
Bolt Action,
yeah.
Bolt Action, what was the other one? Bolt Action
K47, Yep. I've got some, the American Jump Infantry I got to get done, and I keep forgetting about it. But yeah, ton of stuff.
So mostly different games versus different armies for fantasies.
Right, I guess that's, I tend to expand it to different systems.
When Old Worlds comes out, and that might spark more interest in you.
It might, but I'll probably just double down on the ogres. I've always enjoyed them.
Yeah.
And the fact that everybody here actively just hates them.
Yeah.
Like,
there you go.
There's no redeeming features because everybody here continually grumbles about them.
Yeah. It just makes you want to do it more.
I'm just like, this doesn't slow me down at all. So. All right, next we got rant about measuring tapes and how come Games Workshop doesn't make folding measuring sticks. How dare they not make folding measuring sticks? How dare they make... Do you use a Games Workshop measuring tape or do you use
I just use whatever cheaper one I could get, like a Stanley.
I use
it enough that I've already broken one that I need to... Like, I've got one that's like a little more substantial. So, and then I put a sticker with my face on it, so... so
woo?
Yeah, so it's a woo. It's a I guess it's my woo measure. So,
I've broken quite a few Games Workshop measuring tapes, and unfortunately, I don't think any of them were mine.
There you go.
But I've destroyed a lot of them. They just don't. I don't know. They don't hold up. They're not a
Yeah.
great measuring tape.
Yeah.
There's better ones out there.
Yeah. Just go with like a Stanley or something like that.
Yeah.
Don't get too thick of one though, because I've had friends who try to use like the big like contractor ones, and it's just like super unwieldy for them to be able to like work with, because it's not designed to like be able to put there and manipulate and like try to do. It's like get like the one that's like a 12-foot one, like it's like a smaller one.
Yeah.
It'll last you a long time. So
Yeah, people with the big clunky ones, and you get kind of anxious
Yeah.
every time they reach over your
and
models.
then it's like if you
and
drop
you're like,
that, it's
"Ah!"
gonna break something. I'm always watching. You're like,
Whew. Or when they go, they let loose and it like rips like
Yeah, and
8
it's like-
miniatures
yeah, you're
like
oh,
all the way
nuts.
across the board. Yeah.
Yeah. Get a smaller one that you're not going to do damage if you do drop it, because trust me, I drop things all the time. So I know I know not to trust myself. So if you don't want to trust yourself, you go with a smaller one.
Folding measuring sticks, though. Is that what people want? Is that what the kids want to use nowadays? Is folding measuring sticks? Am I that out of touch?
I mean, maybe. You know, everything that was old will be new again. You know.
Let me unfold my measuring
Yeah.
stick and see. No. Like, is the
I just imagine someone playing the game while wearing like steampunk outfit while using the folding measuring tape. But
No.
then again, maybe I'm missing something. I don't know. Are they more accurate? Do they do something better? I feel like it would be harder to like maneuver around walls or obstacles if you've got like pieces of plastic or wood, depending upon I guess what they are. But yeah.
You ever get into a fight with the old Games Workshop whippy sticks?
Oh yeah, that's not good. I mean, no one wins those.
No, those continue to be awful. Like, I don't know why they hurt so bad.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think you could specifically engineer something
You
to.
could. I mean, it just makes that sound through the air where it sounds like it's just like slicing air particles. Or just like, whoosh, and you're like, yeah, you know. But yeah, so I don't know. Maybe we're missing something. Maybe we haven't experienced
We're out of
life
touch.
until we've played Wargaming with a folding.
I'm thinking about the whippy sticks because one of the kids up at the store. I say kid, he's technically an adult, I think. Maybe, I can't remember. And
They're all kids.
I went full General Grievous on him and just swinging 2 of them at him. I didn't actually attack him with them. It's just I think we were trying to clear out, and I clear out the one of the gaming closets, and I found 2 of them.
I thought you meant clear out like the space or something. You're like, everyone out!
Everybody out!
Get out!
General Kenobi.
Yeah. I love it.
Oh, that's so good. We got Andrew Atchley. Josh, who would win in a fight, Conrad, Kurz, or Batman?
Same thing.
Well, I don't know how many people Batman killed. I don't know how many people Batman brutally murdered.
It's true. Batman just put a whole lot of them on like permanent disability, and helped his conscience get away with that. He's like, didn't technically kill him, even though he's never walking again.
Have you ever watched any of the videos of like trauma doctors or people like watching Batman
Yeah,
and stuff, and they're like, he's dead.
Yeah, that guy's
He
dead.
killed him. He murdered
That
him.
guy's dead. That guy dead.
I think there was actually a sketch, and I can't remember the comedian's name.
Yeah.
But he did a bunch of Batman sketches. And they're one basically
Yeah,
where
yeah, yeah.
they're trying to explain to him like you kill all
Kill
these
it. He's
people.
like, "No,
Yeah. When you drop somebody off a building like that,
Yeah.
like when you kick somebody in the neck like that, like they're dead.
They're dead.
They're not asleep. They're just dead.
No, he's just sleeping.
So who do you think would win in a fight, Conrad, Kurz, or Batman?
Well, I mean, I think Conrad Kurz is like he's not gonna like hold back. You know, he doesn't have any compunction about killing people. So I think Conrad Kurz would probably do it.
I think
Even
Kurz-
though they're basically the same person.
They're-
I guess 40K is. I guess it's sort of he's like the grip dark Batman.
Right.
So there you go.
Right.
So.
Yeah, no, Batman, might be a controversial statement for all the comic book fans out there, but I've said, and Steve gets mad at me every time I say it, Batman is my favorite Marvel superhero, so,
Okay. What was that you said about me being basic and
so-
on, pumpkin spice?
as much as I love Batman, I'm probably giving it to Kurz. I think Kurz is going to win that one.
Also, he's got like doesn't he have like, what's his weapon? He's got like no, I'm thinking someone else.
Batman or Kurz?
No, Kurz. He's got like the...
Mercy and Forgiveness.
Yeah,
Oh, and he's
exactly.
so I refer to them as Batarangs, but
Okay.
I think they're called the Widowmakers.
Yeah. I mean, his weapons are called the Widowmakers.
Well, and again, his lightning claws
Yeah,
that he
exactly.
uses to like
That's
murder
what
and
I'm
skin
saying,
people.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
mercy and forgiveness.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I think that's gonna outdo his Batarangs. He's got just a little bit. Yeah. So I'm gonna go Kurz as well.
Yeah. And maybe if Batman had time to prepare.
Maybe
Maybe.
if he had Superman come.
Yeah.
Like maybe if he had time to call Superman and get him over. Maybe then.
Hey, Soups, we're gonna.
Soups, yeah.
This was a rough
This guy's
one.
coming in hard.
Yeah, we're gonna tag you in on this one.
Gonna tag you. Yeah, Martha. I need your help.
Okay, so we got Oliver Haywood. They just showed up the basic Custodes troop update. What do you think of it? Looking forward to the new book. Yeah. Okay, so I've kind of jokingly said it for a while, and like Luca got his new codexes immediately.
Yeah. Of course he did. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah, you got him real early.
So I got the Deathwatch Codex, and kind of like, there's nothing wrong with it, but it just, I don't know. I lost interest in it.
I did just play the Age of the Army of Renown rules with them. It was fun. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, no, I assume it's fantastic. It's just the kind of, I don't know. They became a bit generic-y feeling for me.
I mean, yeah, I get it. I'm not like, I don't have like a like I said, like a bleeding tip edge of the meta Deathwatch army. It's all firstborn, which is not the way. And they're just I love mixing up like a whole bunch of different guys with different stuff, because that's what I envision them in my own head canon as being. Just like, this guy's like, I love lightning claws, so that's what I'm going to bring. And there's no sergeant there to be like, no, you've been issued the bolter, sir. Pick up your bolter and go into war with that. He's like, but I like lightning claws. Like, no.
The Codex Astartes does not support this.
He says, don't talk back to me. It says it right there. And thou shalt not talk back to me. I am your sergeant. Get your bolter.
I think the thing for me is that they locked a little bit more of the flavor of the Deathwatch behind stratagems, which I already am kind of I'm torn about, don't love. And that was enough to push me over the edge to be like, okay, I don't feel like playing Space Marines anymore. Yeah. There's already enough Space Marines. They don't feel different enough. Yeah. And I don't know. I'm not like up in arms like, no, this is a. Yeah. No, I'm just like, I've never been in the mood to play him again.
Yeah, that's fair
never.
That's fair enough.
And then AdMech, I play for the studio, but it's not actually my army, so there's not that much connection. So yes, I'm very excited to get a codex.
And they look cool,
They look super
I think it
cool.
looks like they've changed now, where your choice between the sword and the spear is entirely based upon you wanting to have a storm shield or not. It looks like, because it looks like they've got the same shooting.
They went to the same shooting, so I think they've made them the same damage as far as shooting.
One's pistol, shorter range, and one is but it's still.
They've given them both a bump up in strength.
Yeah.
So I think now the spear you're swinging at strength 7.
Yeah.
Which is already kind of cool.
Yeah.
I think the AP on them is both the same, but I forgot to check that. But it doesn't really matter.
And it's flat 2 damage.
Flat 2 damage on both of them, which is I like that.
From 2 over D3, like there's certain moments when I'm like, I wish I could try to get that 3rd damage, like facing off against like Death Guard or
takes
something.
Takes too long
like
to roll.
I'm
joking aside. For me, it takes me out of the immersion where it's like I got to roll these one at a time.
You like
the math is weird. Gotcha. It's just.
I hear you.
Nope.
I hear you. Like I said, it's just sometimes like when I'm playing against like a Death Guard or something like that, where I'm like, oh, well, this is just doing 1 damage now, and like I don't have a chance to get 2 damage on it.
I will totally acknowledge that. Yes, that is correct. That would be much better in this situation,
but only in those situations.
But I'm willing to sacrifice
for the majority of situations.
Just for the majority of situations to be easier to resolve.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And also, I think in majority of situations, especially the way I roll, 2 damage
straight 2 damage is way better. And I think that they said that they're all going to get, they've all got better leadership or something like that.
Yes, I think. Oh, the 11, yeah, leadership.
Yeah, we're not running away.
That's nuts. That's like the whole that's
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I never run them big enough squads that I think I'm ever going to potentially run. Because how many can I lose on leadership 11?
You can't unless they can. Can you run them in squads more than 6? I don't think.
I don't know.
Because you would have to lose. With leadership 11, you would have to lose 6 before you could lose 1 on a 6. Wow. That's a lot. And I don't think they can run in big squads like that, can they? I think 6 is...
I can't think of a reason why you'd want to anyways.
Yeah.
So, kind of a moot point.
Yeah.
Nito, Burrito, we ain't going anywhere.
Nope. It's almost like, why not just make them fearless? I guess because there are rules that go...
That like, go after your
leadership. Yep. Okay, I could see that. And I guess making them 11, I guess if they get a double 6 for some of those rules, then you possibly you can possibly do it.
Yeah, there might be.
You're never Xing something out.
Well, I guess there are ways to modify your leadership values down that they could hypothetically run. So.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. It'll be interesting to see what they do with the rest of it, like how all their things.
Super interested to see.
Yeah.
I've already been bugging Luca. I'm like, like you're in for a bad time, friendo. Like, it's actually no, because he doesn't grumble about custodies the way that other people have grumbled about custodies. But
I always think they look
once
cool.
he gets the night book, like once the night book is out, he's gonna have no fun.
Yeah, he's gonna be all nights all day.
Yep. No, he'll actually have fun. I think he gets naturally kind of tilted against them because I just roll really well when I play him specifically.
Yeah, fair enough. If you're gonna have one superpower, that's the one to take.
I got this. I don't know if it's ever gotten through on camera, and I can't help it, but when something unfortunate happens, and I'm trying to be a good sport about it, I got this chuckle that I can't help but do,
it
and
just
like
comes up, you're just like,
just the little
okay,
and this stupid smile,
Yeah.
and unfortunately. Because he's a much better player than I am at most game systems. But yeah, I just roll better.
Yeah.
All right, we got Michael Holstrom. Any skirmish games you want to try out or play more of?
Kill Team.
Yeah, I do want to try out Kill Team.
Kill Team's fun. I like the new edition of Kill Team. It's the first time that I feel like Kill Team has become a bespoke skirmish game, whereas previously it always felt like junior 40K. And the way my friend always used to talk about it is like, why would I use my $1,000 Magic deck to play Go Fish when I can just play Magic? And it's like he felt the same way about Kill Team, whereas now Kill Team itself feels like a bespoke game in and of itself. So previously it would be fun to play with your 40K models in like a skirmish situation. It helps you just like if you just want to build in paint and hobby, you can do a faction without having to do 2,000 points of it. And all those things, and there was a lot to it, and I enjoyed the previous editions of Kill Team for that, where it's a quicker game, you can re-rack if things go really horrid, and just you don't waste an entire evening of just like slogging through a game that just doesn't feel fun, because even at its worst, it's over in like half an hour, 45 minutes. So, but with that as well, like this new system though feels like it's a completely dedicated game that's entirely based upon itself. So it's the same lore, obviously, same history. You can use it interchangeably for the models interchangeably. You can also helps you with like, if you're trying to run a campaign, like a multi-level campaign, so you can go and have your big game, and then you go, it's like, all right, well, we're going to focus in on this like one specific situation where this one squad went off to try to go clear out this one sector or whatever, and it's fun like that. But the new system, the new mechanics that they have are bespoke to it. It's like there's no relation between them and and 40K, and it feels good. It feels fun. It feels like it plays well and it's enjoyable. So hopefully it'll keep going that way. But if you're interested in skirmish games, that's the one I would recommend. I mean, that's the one I play, so obviously that's the one I'm going to recommend. But I really like it. It feels like it's got enough crunch to remain interesting, but not too much crunch that it becomes overbearing for what it's worth. Because there's certain skirmish games where the crunch became like too much, like Infinity.
But yeah, that's the point of it, though.
I know that's the point of it. And I know that for certain people that's what they like, but for me it was just like a little bit too crunchy. Yep. This one feels like it's like, like Goldilocks, where it's like, oh, that one's too crunchy. This one's not crunchy enough. Like this one's just right. So that's what it feels like.
So see, for me, it's tough to skirmish games, because I'd probably say Kill Team 2 if you're going with a traditional skirmish game.
Yeah.
I'm going to go out on a bit of a limb and say a game that's a lower model count that you wouldn't call it a skirmish game, but it's got that same kind of vibe of lower model count and semi-crunchy rules. Is I want to play Victory at Sea, which is a World War II naval combat game, because I really like boats.
Yeah.
That's what got me interested in all this miniature gaming kind of stuff. Is when I was a kid, I built some model planes, and just that was super fun for me. So, kind of doubling down into that a little bit more.
I used to play Dystopian Wars. That was always fun.
I've got that upstairs.
Oh, nice.
Some of the old original American stuff.
Nice. I have a friend back home in Savannah, Max, shout out, who's been trying to get people to do Dystopian Wars. I unfortunately have not had the time to get back into it with him, but he's got my Britannia ones from the previous edition, the old edition. So I had a whole bunch of them and built up and painted, which I always thought looked pretty good. So now he's going to be running them for people to enjoy, which is great. So he's doing that. So if you're in the Savannah area and you're interested in Dystopian Wars, I think he does it on Wednesdays at Savannah Lion Game. So
So build that community up. Yeah.
Exactly, help it out. Why not? If someone maybe
this wouldn't be the first time that on this video that somebody's like, oh, totally, yeah, no, I'm down. There's
So yeah, if you're interested in Dystopia Wars and you're in the Savannah area, go check out at Savannah Lion Games on Wednesdays, I believe he goes, and he does. So it's Max Bean. He's super nice guy. Check it out, and he'll have he runs the demo games, and he'd be more than happy to help you figure out what you need to do with that. So.
It's a cool looking IP.
It does. It looks cool. That's what got me into it too. Was it looked cool, like all the different stuff. And back in the day was the Britannia had like the flyers and the flying aircraft carrier and all that fun stuff. So it's cool. It's a cool idea. And it's again like you said, like it's like one of those like alternate history things.
Yep.
It's almost like a World War II-esque kind of thing, but it's like
it's a very steampunk kind of feel to it. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Because I think actually. He hasn't been in forever, but I think Dr. David White, pre-COVID, went down to playing just Dystopian.
Ooh.
I gotta get in touch with him again, see where he's at, but that would be fun to play.
Yeah.
All right, so Julian Lauder would love to hear thoughts on what would make him get back and playing more of his Deathwatch. We kind of touched on that a little bit.
Yeah.
I think honestly the actual answer for it would be if I run into an opponent that I'm filming against. That is a Xenos player that is excited to play against my Deathwatch. That's all. That's literally all it would take.
That's fair enough. Yeah, because I think lore-wise, Deathwatch is probably one of my favorite dark Space Marine like IPs. I think just like the concept of them, like the special forces of Marines is just super rad, and like the specialized hunters of the Xenos, super rad. And like the silver arm and like all the crazy cool weapons like Xeno phase blades, super cool, and I love all that. And that's why I like the aesthetic of like the Firstborn, because it feels like there's more of that built into it, And and I think I love Primaris for other Marine stuff because they always feel like they're a bit more regimented anyway, But for Deathwatch, because it feels like they aren't regimented. That the Firstborn stuff that they have for them fits more.
You can do some really unique stuff. So I actually had a Deathwatch kill team ever since 3rd edition, and I don't know if those minis still exist or if I ended up, breaking them down and reusing them for other stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was interested in the lore of them forever because you used to be able to take a kill team.
Yeah.
Which I thought was super cool.
Yeah. So I think for me, I think what keeps me interested in it is more the aesthetic of them and the lore of them and like just like the concept of them versus like a competitive game-wise mechanic of them, because a lot of the Marines kind of play similarly, and for me the Deathwatch playstyle doesn't feel quite as good because a lot of their cool stratagems are locked in specific to Xenos, and then even beyond that, specific Xenos that you can play them against. So for me, it feels much cooler to just like focus on like a cool looking army that's running out there, but they're rad designs and stuff like that, and a rad mix of weapons. So maybe not for you, but for me, that's really
that's what it was for me. And it's just like at the point where I'm like, they feel kind of generic-y Marines. Like my army's still fun to play. Played it for a little while, but there was just other ones that were just more interesting. And there's not we don't get a ton of Xenos around here.
Yeah.
Except for, like Luca with his Necrons.
Yeah.
And I hate Necrons, so. And I wasn't good at beating Necrons with Deathwatch, so that died off pretty quick.
Yeah.
But it's more of just, not feeling like, it's just they weren't as much fun to play.
Yeah.
For, like I said, a couple of the different reasons.
Fair enough.
But no, it was always, because it was always Codex my guys.
Yeah.
You could do whatever you want with the loadouts. And I thought Deathwatch was kind of boring back when everybody's, did the Stormbolter, Storm Shield.
Yeah.
Here's a squad of 10 guys all loaded at the same. There's nothing wrong with that, but like I had I think in my grand total in the army, I had 4 guys with that loadout, maybe. And that was like after like months of it, that being kind of the thing that you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
So I'm like, whatever, I'm going to make a couple of them.
Yeah.
We've got Billy Latham up next. I know you're branching out into other minigames. Would you consider Marvel Crisis Protocol or Star Wars Legion?
Marvel Crisis Protocol, those models look rad.
They look super cool.
Super cool.
You know what, Billy? I'm going to give you the same answer. Until they come up with a Batman miniature, I'm not going to play.
I think you're gonna wait a long time to get a Batman miniature.
Yeah, I don't know. See, I don't know if you picked up on that earlier because that was the good. Like, I'm not actually much of a comic book guy. Like, I know enough to upset people because that's. I said that earlier when I'm like, yeah, you know, my favorite, you know, hot take. Some people are gonna be upset, but my favorite Marvel superhero is Batman.
Oh, you say Marvel? Okay, I didn't pick that.
And then you didn't pick up on it, so I'm like, I'm just gonna leave it and not pursue that.
That's when I made the comment about like, oh, really? That's a real hot take there.
Yeah.
Pumpkin spice latte of superheroes there.
Yeah. Because I knew that somebody was like, somebody had already
someone's already commented, and now you can actually, you can edit the comment and just be like,
they leaned forward and started typing. Yeah. Okay, so I've heard really good things about it, but like I said, not being a big superhero guy one way or another, it's another game that sounds great, but if everybody here started playing it, I'd probably jump into it too and have fun. But nobody does, so. And there's other stuff that I'm more interested in personally. In Star Wars Legion, I like it. I've got a decent sized Imperial army. Haven't played in forever. Bug at Luca to get his droids done and play. We'll try a game. We'll see if you guys like it.
So there's a comment you can leave for Luca for next week.
Yeah, harass him about it. I honestly would be curious to see if anybody enjoyed the content. Because back when we did X-Wing and Armada, well, X-Wing more so, Fantasy Flight does a good job of making these really competitive games. And people are like, yeah, stop talking in your bat rep. We want to have other people narrating what you're doing as you're doing it, and stop showing us the ships. We just want a top-down view. I'm like, well, that's super boring. That's not what we do.
Thing,
so I'd be curious if people would actually enjoy watching content of two people. I'm trying to say this in a way that doesn't like offend people, but I'm being accurate. Like, would people actually want to watch two guys playing Star Wars Legion for fun? Not purposefully poorly, but not the top of the meta. Like, why are you taking this unit that's not the top of the meta right now? Because that was the same thing that happened with our War Machine coverage. Is people are like, yeah, you know, why are you using this caster that's not the tournament meta? This is dumb and bad. Like, stop. Yeah. So Legion, I think, would be fun. I don't think we'd ever get like super deep into it, but I'd love to play a couple games of Legion just to see what people think. Luca's a little bit more, even though I don't think his stuff ever got painted, because I know his buddies were playing, and I think his buddies got a little bit more competitive with it, and that kind of maybe shied him away from it a bit. But luckily, I'm not a good player, so that wouldn't happen to him here. I don't know. Are you a fan of the Star Wars IP?
I do. I love Star Wars. I really do. And I've heard really great things about Legion, but I mean, like I said, I have a hard time going into a lot of those, like, you know, those IP kind of genres with games, again, for similar reasons, where it's like there's a set lore as to what happened in these games, and it's
there's a set lore in Warhammer.
Man. I know, but I feel like there's still an open-ended line to it, whereas, like, you know, there's not an open line for Darth Vader.
Dude, like in the lore where Call showed up to 100% of every AdMech battle.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's
honestly, I wouldn't put it past him to have cloned himself and had him
Philadelphia.
But, I know, I'm weird, but whatever. That's why you love me.
You just gotta get out of that mindset, man.
I know. And
these games all have well-established lore. There's like
I get it.
30 plus years of lore.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like there is a part of it where it's like, oh, guess there's Darth Vader again. Fighting Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I don't usually have that problem with, like, I guess I don't know why I don't have that problem in 40K.
With named characters.
I don't mind with Azrael.
I'm trying to blow your mind here. Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. It doesn't bother me as much.
And yeah, that's the other weird thing, because I didn't realize that when you, like a Space Marine chapter, 100% of the time they bring an apothecary, it's always the chief apothecary.
Oh, yeah.
There's only, they always bring that one.
They don't leave home.
There's, the rest of the apothecaries sit around at home and wait for their time to be the chief apothecary.
Also, did you know that the Dark Angels, their chief apothecary, is part of the Raven Wing? Because he's the only one that ever shows up to all.
That's super weird. Yeah. That's super weird. Every time, like, hey, congratulations on becoming a doctor. You know how to ride a bike?
Like, here's your bike. Yeah, exactly. That's what it is. It's like their gift for graduating med school in the far, far future. They get a motorcycle. Congratulations, you graduated Dark Angel Medical School. Here's your bike.
Yep.
And your diploma.
But I am, so I mean, we're saying this jokingly, but yeah, this is one kind of thing where, talking to our audience, where I'm like, help me understand why you guys are okay with like weird alternate history 40K stuff, but not like these other systems.
You're right, and I don't know why.
And for people to say simply like, I just don't like the setting. Well, that's cool. That's an easy enough answer. But people are like, no, this sounds really cool, but it would bother me to do this or that, and I'm like, try these other games out. There's a ton of weird, fun little mechanics, and
it also might just be the way people consume different media. You know, like for me, I consumed 40K as a game before I became like a major reader. Like I read a ton of 40K novels and stuff like that. So I think for me, it was always a game first, then a hobby, then a lore thing. Gotcha. And I do all three in like pretty much equal measures at this point. But because of that, I'm able to like do that. Whereas for like Star Wars, it was a movie, like for 90% of what I've consumed it. So then to try to go into it and be like, play this game, and it's like, well, like that's not what happened because I've watched the movies. I know, I've seen what happens here. It's like he doesn't die on this random outer planet to a weird blaster shot from left field.
Yep.
And it's and that's, I don't know. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's why people don't like my Green Ravenwing Bikers, is because to them it was like a lore thing before it was a game or hobby thing.
But again, we gotta go back to named characters in 40K, my man.
It's true. And I get it. I get it.
People, it's weird. People just never thought about that before.
It's true. And I mean, I didn't know that people have said things like that. Where it's like, oh, I don't like bringing named characters because why are they at every battle? And it's like, I do get that before, and I have zero idea why it does not bother me in the slightest.
Well, I think more and more it's becoming, correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I think it's more and more common that people are bringing named characters in 40K. Because it feels like it was always used to be like, because so many of them were so bad, but now they're all pretty solid.
And they're doing a good job of making ones. There's always certain builds where it's like cheaper to bring a non-named character because they do have like the named character fee that comes along with it.
Sure. They usually have some really good rules that make up for it.
That's true.
Before they used to have unique rules that were kind of like, but I mean, like, he's not that effective, but he's cool lore-wise.
Yeah. So, but it is. Yeah. And I don't know why. If I'm being honest, don't know why. But yeah.
Okay, we got Robert Spalding, Game Theory. Which is easier for gamers to get into? Small warband style games or Grand Army mini war games? What do you think is easier for people to get into?
It depends upon how much hobby you want to do with it. So if you're just looking to build, like buy the models and just play the games and you don't care if they're gray plastic, then I don't think it matters. I think you're going to find more of an audience for the bigger games, like Warhammer, Age of Sigmar. You're not going to have a hard time usually finding players who want to play those games out there. You might have a harder time once you get into the smaller skirmish games, especially if you get into the non-major IP skirmish games, because then people have to have bought like a bespoke or have that kind of interest in it.
Yep.
So you're going to have a harder time finding game-wise those things. But if your interest is in buying, building, and painting an army that will work on the tabletop before you're even playing it, then obviously skirmish is going to be easier because you're going to have a lower model count. You're going to have more flexibility with what you're going to do with that, because if you're painting 1,000 little Gribblies, I don't care. You're not going to take the time to paint all of them a special way. But if you only have 10 of them in your army, then you can take the time to paint them special if you so desire. So if your interest is in the hobby, if your interest is in collecting for those, I think you're going to have an easier time getting into a smaller skirmish game, because it'll allow you to play them quicker if that's what you're looking for. But if you're just looking to play the game, I mean, lower monetary commitment to the smaller games, but you're going to have an easier time finding people who want to play the bigger grand games like Warhammer or Age of Sigmar than you are the smaller skirmish games.
Yeah, it depends on what the locals are playing. Now, so my argument with a lot of the smaller warband style games of why they can be difficult to get into is a lot of them are much more terrain heavy.
That's true.
So
there are usually a lot more crunchy, because you can be a lot more crunchy when you've got 5 models on the table versus when you have like 50.
Which that can be, sometimes it can be easier or difficult to get into, but what it comes down to is, because we talked about time and money, which are some of the major factors for people.
Always.
It's the amount of terrain you need for a lot of these little skirmish shooty war band games to work, kind of make it difficult. So
40K kind of works if you just have like 5 big pieces on a table.
Yep.
Especially with the smaller tables, recommended table size. 5 pieces is, you're usually okay to go and have a decent game. That's not going to be Planet Bowling Ball.
Yep.
But you're right, the smaller skirmish games, you need, as many, if not more, for a
way
small
more
field,
intricate,
because it
good
needs to be-
terrain.
yeah.
That you got to be
for
able
the
to.
mechanics to work the way they do.
Well, and you usually want to be able to really kind of change those boards up. So you need some terrain that you can mess around with. 40K, you can get away with having the same kind of boring terrain.
Yeah.
Every
Because
time.
it's
How many
strategy.
L-shaped walls do you need, right?
true.
Like. Okay, next we got Cody Martinka. Why do pineapples take 2 years to fully grow?
Do they? I didn't know that.
So, I mean, like the base statement's not technically correct because it depends on your environment.
Okay.
So, I mean, whether you're growing them indoors, outdoors, and what the weather's like.
Wow.
But so imagine a pineapple.
Yes.
Now the reason that they take so long to fully grow is that each little section on the outside, that's a flower. Which
Are
ends
you
up,
messing with me, or is that true?
I don't know.
Oh.
Does it seem like I know what I'm talking about?
It did sound like you had the authority that I didn't.
And I believe what it is that it's a little flower that, will have a berry that coagulates in. And eventually, when it grows big enough to be a full pineapple, that's accumulation of all these flowers that have had to flower and turn into a berry and coagulate into the main pineapple.
Fair enough. If that's true, that'd be cool.
So
Pineapple's my favorite fruit.
maybe I blew somebody's mind. Maybe I didn't. I don't know. I don't know. Okay, so I'm not 100% sure,
Okay.
but I'm 90% sure I'm correct, and I don't know why I know this.
Okay, that's fair enough.
But
You sounded like he somehow randomly hit on like this small bit of expert knowledge that you had, and I was like, I'm down. I'm down to agree.
I have a bad habit of, because I don't really watch a whole lot of TV, I'll go on Wikipedia and read something, and then like Wikipedia surf from thing to thing to thing.
Yeah.
So I know.
He does that too. Like he just goes down that Wikipedia hole, and all of a sudden he'll share this like random article, and we're like, why? He's like, I don't know. I had to read it, so now you do.
Now you know.
Yeah. Now you know it.
I have a bad habit of that. I don't know if it's a bad habit. Like, if I don't know, like, if somebody were to break into this room right now and threaten both of our lives and say, unless you can answer this random abstract trivia question,
Yeah. I have a lot.
That's the situation where I might be useful.
That's fair enough. I'm very good at like bar trivia and those kind of things because I've got a lot
not
of
pineapple related trivia.
apparently not pineapple
Jeez,
related, but I've got like a lot of like random like BS in my brain that like for some reason takes precedence over like remembering the word for like spoon or whatever. But that's what it goes with, and I go with it from there. But yeah, so.
Well, hopefully. Well, maybe that answers your
I hope your
question,
pineapple
Cody.
grows faster than 2 years.
Christian. Yeah. This is how I'm going to say that. I'd like to know what you think of the balance update for the Imperial, Renegade, and Chaos Knights. I think we talked about it already. Like, it's good. It's
I think it's great.
it's really good. And I'm interested in it because it shows the direction I think they're going.
I think what it does is it makes them able to compete in 9th edition.
You can play. You might actually be able to win.
You can actually play.
Yeah.
Because previously it was like you can't kill the enemy off the board fast enough that you can still win based upon what you had with one model holding one objective. That was an obstacle. It just wasn't going to happen. And the fact that the 9th edition went to objective holding being a requirement for the game, not just something that could possibly be part of it, it made them very hard to compete really in the game. And I know there were builds that people were bringing in certain ways that they did very well with, but still, as a whole and generically, the Knights had a hard time and struggled and came from the back foot in 9th edition just because of the mechanics of having such a low count. Like I know Custodians are low count, but they had OBSEC and they were still more models than you have in Knights. And I think this balance just makes them a viable army in 9th edition. Which is what it should be. That's what the balance, and that's why it's balanced. So it doesn't make them OP. It doesn't make them, the new.
They're not new top of the meta.
Exactly, but they are viable now, so that you can actually just play them and have a good time and enjoy the company of whatever you're playing, and not just go that I'm gonna lose by taking these guys because they can't hold objectives.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm actually kind of excited to get them onto the table more than any other army right now. Josh Potter, why do we have the same first name and love the same hobby? Are you my clone? Maybe you're my clone. Josh,
what he looks like under
other
that
Josh.
It could be your face.
it's just his face like is on my chin.
Yeah, exactly.
That'd be kind of odd.
Yeah.
I'm sure he would whisper to me in my sleep.
You don't know.
That'd be super
It's like
upsetting.
what is it, like the Voldemort when he was like on the guy?
Yeah, back of the head.
Right, like underneath your beard is this Josh.
All right. What do you think of the restrictions on aircrafts and match play and its impact on sign and airborne guard? No.
I see. I think it's good having less fires. I mean, I can understand that there's certain armies where it didn't break things, like having like the guard that had like a ton of like the vultures. Like you weren't breaking the game with those. But there was like so many times you ran into like AdMech having too many flyers, Orcs having too many flyers, or Eldar back in the day having too many flyers, where it's like they could because they operate on such a different level than everything else on the board. It became hard to just balance them the same way you balance everything else. And I think it came down to a fact where it's like you either had to get rid of them or limit them to the point where they couldn't break the mechanics of the game. And I think I like that fact that they're limited to 2.
So, what I'll get into, what I'll say, because it's going to lead into Matt's one from last week a little bit.
Okay.
I don't like it.
Okay.
For a variety of different reasons.
Okay.
And it's mostly, we're going to talk, I'm kind of just say the whole whack-a-mole approach.
Okay.
And it's not just how they impact the guard overall. This has happened other times where they're like, hey, this one thing's way too good, so we're going to make this blanket rule that impacts a lot of other armies that aren't very good.
Gotcha.
But we're going to talk about game balance and that a little bit towards the end.
Okay.
But overall, my hot take, don't like it. Bad. But we'll get into that more.
Is that your feeling on it because...
Not because I play it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, not strictly because I play it. Okay, so without getting too much into the other topic, I guess we're going to touch on, because Matt's one last week is should Games Workshop balance their games?
Oh, okay.
So I guess my toodaloo. My thought on it is that if it's an issue for competitive play, because I don't think for casual play it was a big issue.
Yeah, I mean,
blanket for aircraft.
Your friend brings 7 aircraft to the game in your garage. He's either not coming back or he's told don't bring that next time.
Or just, because again, you go back to the social contract of just like, hey man, like that wasn't really cool to play against. You mind switching it up next time?
Yeah.
And if he's a decent person, he goes, cool. And then if it's a problem at tournaments, the tournament organizer can say, hey, this is what we're doing. Or if you want to get even more organized, if there's some sort of large tournament organization,
I think
they can be the ones to say, hey, specifically, we're deciding to limit this and that. But again, we'll get into it a little bit more. So that's for me, that's an example of something that I don't like, because it's a little bit of a whack-a-mole approach that is going to take care of what's a perceived issue with certain players and factions, but also impact other ones kind of needlessly in my mind.
Yeah.
But again, like I said, we'll get into that a little bit more. Get more time in one skirmish game on stream, what would it be? Obviously, I think you'd be saying Kill Team. I would honestly, like, to get on stream and play, I think we could do a really cool job with it, with the switching of cameras and all that. I don't know if anybody would watch it, would be Titanicus. I think that's a super fun game, and I think it could lend itself well to streaming.
Yeah, I can see that.
Brian Scott hopes for a Heresy 2.0. Hope the game system remains most of the same with some tight changes of Psychic or a semi-overhaul. Do you play Heresy at all?
No, I haven't. I've never played a Heresy game, so
I'll jump in on this one then.
Yeah.
Don't touch my Heresy. No. Overall, yeah, you could tighten up a couple things, but I think generally speaking, the Heresy's for me personally, I like where it's at. So yeah, if they just tidied up a couple things. Very minor here and there, maybe some very minor quality of life changes, but if it went closer to 9th edition, I would probably enjoy it less. I like where it's at right now. I don't want to see a big giant overhaul. I want it to be more accessible to people, and that would be by getting more plastic kits.
That's true.
That are sold by Games Workshop stores, local hobby stores, instead of just, so much of the stuff is Forge World only. That's what I want to see. More plastic kits, make the game more accessible for people. That's about it.
Yeah.
Will you guys be playing more BFG, Blood Bowl, and interest in doing a Space Hulk campaign? There's some stuff going on for it right now that I don't know how much Matt's talked about, so I'm not going to talk about it too much. But both of those things, there's some stuff swirling and or in the works with.
Cool.
Let's jump over to the YouTubes. We got a couple here, but then we're going to talk real quick because I want to get your take and we're going to have a little discussion. This is already going over time, but I like this. Again,
like I said, if you want succinct, don't bring me up.
For me, this is how I enjoy this. So, I don't know if enough attention is paid to the fact that I run super long on these when I do them with somebody else.
Yeah.
So I don't really get in trouble for doing it this way.
Nice.
So hopefully you guys enjoy this, and if this ends up morphing into something else, all the better for it. Okay. I'm kind of skimming through these real quick.
See if we've
Yeah, we talked about co-host stuff. Okay, we're gonna see more of the Mordians? Yeah, probably. I don't play as much 40k as I used to.
Yeah.
Just because I've got other responsibilities and other things I'm taking care of right now. So what it usually comes down to is whatever I'm really in the mood to play, or what my opponent really wants to play against, and it just hasn't been the Mordians recently. They got some cool updates. Oh, when the new codex comes out, yeah, of course, because people are going to want to see that, and I'm going to be more excited for it. But until then, maybe, I don't know, maybe a little bit. We'll see, because there's been no real announcements for any of that stuff, as far as I know, anyways. Syntax. It's good that there's more interaction on YouTube, but it's more difficult to find stuff.
Yeah.
We thought
People
about
are also
doing...
talking about, I'm sure they comment on the actual video.
Right. Might be a Mac question. Ever thought about doing a Roku, Apple TV, Android TV app for the Vault? Yeah, there's been a lot of talks about that, and I won't say something's in the works right now, but I think we've been trying to find the right person to work with on that kind of stuff is where it's at. But that is more of a Mac question because that's kind of more in his ballpark of responsibilities.
So remember that and just bring it back the next time it cycles around.
Yeah, ask him a little bit about it, and he can probably talk more intelligently about it one way or another. Okay, so I didn't get the chance to watch any of this because again I checked the just looking at the title of the video.
Yeah.
And the people have some interesting thoughts and feelings one way or another. But the title of Matt's one last week is "Should Games Workshop balance their games?"
Okay.
And I think the easy answer is yes, but let's dig a little bit deeper into this about the role that we think that Games Workshop should play, and when it comes to balancing, because obviously you want to have them put out a product that people have fun playing.
Yes.
But there is a lot of stuff going on, and there's a lot of different ways that people play these games. And I know you can always say, well, if you don't like the FAQ, ignore the FAQ.
But that's not always.
That's not as easy enough.
Yeah. Unless you have a very tight-knit group that all think the same, that's the only time that you're ever going to be able to do something like ignore an FAQ or ignore something and just stick with it. Anytime that you're going to be playing with anyone outside of a very tight circle, you're always going to want to default to the official stance on a lot of these things.
Right.
So that is always a little bit facetious with it. And my take on whether they should balance it or not is that the balancing they should look for is to make sure the game that there's nothing in the game that is oppressive, and there's nothing in the game that makes you feel hopeless. Mm-hmm. And if you can have a game that doesn't feel hopeless and doesn't feel oppressive, then you're starting to develop the balance that isn't necessary.
Yep.
I've gone into most games of 9th edition feeling like I have a chance. Even if it's against Admech, against Ynnari, I feel like I've had a chance. The one that I did feel like I had a chance against was going into the battle with the buggy list. Once I played it, it felt oppressive. It felt like it was bad for the game because it felt like it put you in a situation where there was just it just wasn't fun to play. Mm-hmm. And that's the balance that you had. I think you're always going to have, because unless you're playing chess, you're never going to have an equally balanced game.
Chess isn't perfectly balanced.
And exactly. White wins 2% of the time.
Yeah, something like that.
Because they get to go first. If you were going to play, so even then you're not having a fully balanced game, but that's about as close to a balanced game as you're going to get. And 40K and Age of Sigmar and any of those systems are inherently different. If they made every game just a reskin, you'd have Horus Heresy.
The best game ever! The best game!
Zing, zing, zing! I think that, what you would have is you'd have a game that just wouldn't be as fun. You know what I mean? It would allow you to hobby the models specifically you wanted them, but you wouldn't have the variety. You wouldn't have the difference. And inherently, this game is going to be different. And I think that you're going to have different gameplays. You're going to have different tactics. You're going to have different strategies. And the balance that they should look for is to have a game that doesn't feel hopeless. So you don't go into it like right now, Gene Steeler Cult are in a bad place. And every time I go into a game with them, it feels a little hopeless. It doesn't feel like I had a chance from the beginning. So that, it's going to change once they get their new codex in a month at this point. They'll get their new codex and I'll be happy again and we'll be fine. And whether they'll be the top of the meta or not, I'll actually be able to go into games and enjoy playing them. And that's where I feel like every army should be at that point. And no army should be at the point where your opponent sees them across the table and just feels hopeless to play against. And I'm not talking about feels hopeless because of the whining that they've heard online. I feel like it should be that you feel hopeless just because of the actual gameplay itself. So like I said, Admech, Drukhari, they're good. Don't get me wrong. They're very good. They're strong. They have a lot of tricks that they can do. They have very strong things that they can do in game, and they win a fair amount. And they probably needed balancing on a strictly tournament level for it. But the Orc buggy list felt oppressive. It felt like there's nothing you could do about it. Didn't matter what list I brought to it. Didn't matter what tactics I used. When I played the game with my Dark Angels that had done pretty decently against most everything, including Admech, I played against that Orc buggy list and it just destroyed me. And I looked back with my friend, I was like, how could I have done this different? And he agreed that there was nothing. There was nothing I could have done different. Even going first, going second, it didn't matter. I couldn't have done anything with it. And that's not fun and that's not good for the game, in my opinion.
Right. So I guess the talking point is that the thing that I'm kind of trying to figure out, because again, I don't know the full context of what Matt's talking about, because obviously Games Workshop should try to, keep their games balanced and all that. But when you run into certain issues, is it up to the manufacturer to be the be-all and end-all for the balance, or is it up to, if there's certain, like I said, play styles, and, in tournament play, if something's way too powerful, is it up to the TOs to be the ones organized saying that this is what we're going to do? Or is it Games Workshop, the company that's producing this stuff, doing it? Because
I think you're right. I think the word responsibility is maybe not the right one to use. His previous edition, like 7th edition and whatnot, you had ITC. That was basically became the unofficial governing body of competitive play. Like they put out their FAQ because GW was not, that addressed certain issues that came up either because of poor wording or because of just like a mechanic that just was not working right. And they came out with their FAQ, their version of the FAQ for tournament play. And they had a competitive balance. So you could go and you could say, all right, well, I'm not going to play ITC, or I am going to play ITC. And you can make that decision. I know that GW has tried to do that kind of separation with like open play and narrative play versus match play, which match play is meant to be more of a competitive style.
Well, organized play,
organized
right?
play, yeah,
right,
exactly.
Which there always seems to be blurred lines between organized play and match play.
That's true, and I mean maybe that's the problem. Is that there's a blurred line between match play and organized play. And I don't think that GW has a responsibility to be that entity that does it, but they've tried to become more responsive to the community on all levels. And I think it would be hard for them to become responsive to the community and ignore competitive play. Because of the fact that it's become a big thing that happens. I know that majority of players don't go to tournaments. I know the majority of players are not going to GTs. But at the same time, it's become a big part of the community. And for them to ignore it because they don't want to deal with competitive play feels like that would be a weird place for them to go if they're endeavoring to become more responsive, and more and more of an authoritative source. So because there's so many times when you'd have it, it's like, well, who says that? And it's like, well, these guys, and who are they? It's a bunch of guys that just got together to do tournament stuff. And it becomes hard. They're not coming from a place of authority. They're coming from a place of, well, we run tournaments and this is how we're going to do it, and other people kind of agree. Whereas when GW says it, it's like, It comes from a place of authority.
Which is
like,
what
this is our game. We do this, and this is what
right.
we're going to say.
And of course, they can say whatever they want, and ultimately we can do whatever we want.
Yes.
So I guess my talking point would be, so you look at there being an issue with really good, and again, I'm not entirely sure, really good Orc and AdMech flyers.
Mm-hmm.
So, Games Workshop puts up the banhammer, says, no more, you're only getting 2 flyers in your standard point size games. And that's good, but then you've got some other random factions that kind of get hit. Like my goofy Air Cavalry Scion list, that is not going to win any tournaments.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, the standard of play and match play is, well, no, I can't bring that anymore.
Yeah.
So that's been invalidated. So I guess my talking point would be, if you look at some of the structure before, if Games Workshop was supporting the people organizing the tournament play, super competitive play kind of stuff, and giving them the support they need. If those guys said that, hey, yeah, look, guys, like the Orc and AdMech stuff's kind of out of hand, so we're going to limit their flyers, or we're going to limit all flyers in our events and stuff like that. Well, then Josh's dumb flyer list doesn't really get impacted, and people aren't like, wow, I don't have to break the core rules of the game now to be able to bring this kind of thematic, goofy, not very good list.
Yeah.
So I guess my talking point would be, with the Games Workshop moving towards more of a competitive event, more of a competitive rule set, which is overall good, tighter rule set. Naturally, you're gonna lose a little bit of flavor here and there. They've got to make decisions really based upon that. And the competitive group has always been the one with good organized feedback.
Yes.
But you know what I mean? Like,
that's the thing is that, you go to a tournament and it's out in the public and people talk about it and see it and there's hundreds of people there.
Yep.
So what happens there becomes known.
Oh, for sure.
2 guys playing in their garage, that what they feel about it is not going to come out, which is why I was excited to see them putting out like the survey and stuff like they did, because that's endeavoring to get the response from people that aren't at these events. Because if you go to the events, they're going to hear it, they're going to see it, they're going to know, because they have people there, So even like big tournaments like Nova, they had their people there. LVO, they've got their people there. They're running their own GTs now. Like, they're at these big tournaments and big events, and they're hearing what people are saying. They're seeing what's going on the table at those events
in this competitive
setting,
right.
Because those are the things that are happening in public. But they're not going to your friendly local gaming store.
They're going to go to some guy's basement, your buddy's basement, where you're playing these games, right?
This guy's garage on a Friday night. Like, they're not there to see it. They're not there to hear it, and the people that it's impacting there aren't going. There's not going to become a critical mass of talk about it, because it only impacted those 2 guys that were playing there, or it was only impacting those 2 people that were playing the game, and it's not impacting hundreds of people at an event, that it becomes a little bit more hard to ignore or hard to miss. Which is why I like the fact that they're coming out with this survey stuff, so that they could hear what other people have to say, and they can hear what those 2 guys in the basement that were playing in the basement. What their response was.
Right.
And maybe the 2 guys in the garage also had a similar experience, and they voiced their opinions. And maybe the 2 guys that were playing over in the spare bedroom, they also had a similar experience, and they can voice their opinion. Or the 2 people playing at the game store can have the similar experience, and they voice it. So suddenly now you have that critical mass of response that becomes hard for them to miss or hard for them to ignore, from the sources that aren't as easily attainable.
Right. The survey was a good step,
really
right?
Good step. And that's why, you're right, I think it becomes very easy to overreact to things that happen in like a tournament meta. And I think you saw that when they first tried to do these kind of balancing FAQs, like what they did with Iron Hands, where because Iron Hands were like seemingly oppressive, they just destroyed them into the ground, and you didn't hear from them again. And even to this day, people still talk about how the Iron Hands, like how broken it was. And it's like, it probably was, but then they got like overly nerfed to the point that you just didn't see them again.
Because it's feel bad. That's what I'm kind of getting at. It's feel bad both ways.
Yes.
Because that's where you kind of get into, so you look at that, and I wonder, where the best kind of separations happen.
Sure.
Because obviously, they're doing a good job with it overall, but then you've got people that get really kind of frustrated, where they're like, well, you put out a rule set where there's an air wing detachment with 3 flyers, and then you say, well, no more 3 flyers. And it's really easy for people to get grumbly at the company that put those rules out.
Because they're the ones saying, don't do this.
Well, they're saying ones now do this, now don't do this.
Now don't do this.
Use this, don't do this. And that's the one where, bringing factions up a little bit, that tends not to be a feel bad for a lot of people, because we talk about the knights. Cool, the knights got a boost. So, and generally speaking, I haven't
getting 2-up armor.
Right, like I haven't met anybody with those little kind of tweaks and buffs that have kind of grumbled about it. But it's always when they nerf something. So that's where you go back and forth and you go. It's difficult because then more and more it feels like a lot of the books that come out, are generally pretty good.
Yeah,
and there's
Ninth
just
edition has been generally very balanced. In my opinion, I think generally 9th edition books have a much easier time than 8th edition books.
Yep.
So when I say balanced, I don't mean like, oh, my 8th edition Genestealer Cult is not balanced against my 9th edition Dark Angels book. It's like, duh.
It's a different edition, different game system.
And there was definitely a shift in power between 8th and 9th.
Yep.
But between the 9th edition books, there's a pretty good parity between them all. And I feel it's been good. It's been a fun addition to be able to play in with that and seeing that build up. And then there was like some outriders, like outliers. So you have like the orc buggy list was just like, it was oppressive, add mech for a while. That's
the one for me. Sorry, I'm cutting you off, but I don't feel as bad.
You can talk.
So,
I talk a lot, so.
I guess part of what I kind of look at and part of the frustration is like, how did you guys not realize this was going to be super oppressive and bad? Like, what were you thinking putting that out in the first place? I mean, you shouldn't need to make these big nerfs. Sometimes, sure, but I mean, I don't know. I'm not a game designer, so there might be a whole ton of stuff I'm missing. I'm not telling people how to do their jobs. Everybody that's already typing that, get lost.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm trying to do. Yeah. But there's sometimes things where it's like, and it's always a frustrating one when they make one thing way too powerful, so then they nerf across the board something. And that's the part of going like, hey, and I think that this might have been what Matt was getting at or maybe leaned into is one of those that obviously they got to try to create balanced games, but when they do a poor job of that, how much is, what should be their role in trying to rectify that? And generally they're pretty good at it. Sometimes I think they miss the mark because then, you get the feel bads of, well, they nerfed my army because the new army they put out was way too powerful. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think, I've always looked to Games Workshop for making really just cool, fun rules.
And models,
and really good, thematic lore kind of stuff. But once you wade into them going like, hey, look, we're really promoting this game as a competitive tournament kind of game, like that kind of, it shifts to a degree.
Yeah.
So that's where I wonder, the greater impacts. I'm not saying that they should or shouldn't do. My computer's dying, but luckily we're kind of stuck on this last topic. So I look at the Deathwatch and I go like, yeah, it's a really good book. I think as far as I know, I'm not a tournament guy. As far as I know, it's pretty balanced for tournament play and it's decent.
Yeah.
But you lost a little bit of flavor.
Yeah. I can see that.
That's where I wonder if that's what he was leaning into with the title and the discussion that he was getting into. But it's immediately what I thought of. So I'm like, hey, cool, let's chat about this and just kind of throw our feelings out one way or another.
And, I've been a big fan of them coming out and finding responding. I love the FAQs. I know there's tons of people like, oh, well, I bought a book and it's instantly outdated. It's like, well, yes, because there's, and people are talking like, well, it should be digital. It's like, well, you can get digital now. You can get the Warhammer Plus subscription. You can put your book in there, and then it'll be updated for you.
Yep.
But innately, I think that they should be responding because there were so many times when you just had the same book for like 5 years, and there was nothing that changed about it. And if there was something messed up about it, and you were just left with this, they didn't care, and you were left with that. I much prefer the responsiveness and the FAQs and that than what we had previously.
Which was just radio silence.
For literally everything. They put out a book and be like, enjoy, and that's it.
Go nuts.
Go nuts. It's yours. Do what you're gonna do. And that's why you created the situations where ITC had to come in and do it. And people were using ITC even just for fun games. But then it became it was like, well, I'm not a competitive player, so I'm not gonna use ITC. It's like, well, honestly, most of their FAQ was just designed for game balance and not for just competitive stuff. And but it still had that stigma of where it's like, well, it's only competitive that cares about. And I think that's also why you see a lot of this where it's like the game balance is only for competitive. And it's like, it's only for competitive if you have a close group that communicates well and understands each other and respects each other to that point. If you're going to the local game store, you're going to get those people who come in with that orc buggy list until they're told they can't anymore in the rules because they like going in and just raffle stomping people. And you're going to face those situations. If you're just playing your friend in your garage, you're playing your friend in your backyard, yeah, you can just look at him and be like, this is stupid. Do not bring this anymore. It's no fun to play. But you can't do that to everybody in the game store because they're going to play it. There's plenty of people out there, and I've met plenty of them who want to go to stomp people. And that's where they get their enjoyment from. And until they're told from an official standpoint, you cannot, they're not going to stop, you know?
Yeah, they're not going. Well, I guess the counter argument for me would be, it's they're going to stop when they run out of people to do it to.
That's true.
And that can be bad overall. There's the back and forth.
Bad situation, Whereas if you have an official statement that comes
feel bad for them or feel bad for other people.
I mean, I don't enjoy excluding people, from a game that I can't game with. Like, there have been people that I don't enjoy gaming with, but if the reason that I don't enjoy gaming with them could be addressed in a way that didn't require me to have to, ask them not to do it.
Or just educate them, say that's not fun. And if they go, I take enjoyment from making sure you don't have fun, well then cool. I guess maybe I'm more harsh in that, going good. It's like puppies, right? When you get a little puppy and he bites you, you're playing, but he bites you too hard, and you kind of, okay, well you bit me too hard, and I don't have to punish you, I don't have to yell at you.
Yeah.
Well, we've done something that's not okay. We're just going to stop playing now.
Yeah.
And they learn, oh, that's not okay. I shouldn't do that to people.
Yeah.
And
I get it. I do get it. I just, for me, it makes it easier for me to have an official statement that comes out and says, that list is not good. You cannot do that list for reasons.
I think this is coming down to personality more and more, and I'm realizing this conversation more and more, because I hate when whenever the man says you can't do that, I'm like, nah, screw you. I will 100% of the time when somebody's like, hey, that's not fun, please don't do that, be like, I'm so sorry. The point of this is that, for sure.
But there are plenty of people out there that can't socially respond that way and don't pick up on those cues, in which case you're almost helping them by having an official statement that there's now a balancing FAQ that tells them how to not make a list that is going to piss off the other people at the game store.
Yeah, but I would almost argue the current structure helps to embolden them more, because they're like, hey, look, if this buggy list was a problem, Games Workshop will FAQ it. So I'm totally justified in what I'm doing.
There are plenty of people that are like that. There are also plenty of people that maybe don't pick up on those cues, that they don't pick up on the fact that their opponent is not enjoying it because of neurodivergent issues, that they don't pick up on those cues that because your opponent, if I was being nice, if I'm not having fun, I'm not going to be like, I hate you, I hate playing you, and I'm never going to do it again. You don't going to go that. Be like, all right, good game, and then be like, oh sure, yeah, maybe I'll play you, and not do it. And it's like, that's what it would come, and it's like, in this situation, it helps them because they can make a list according to the rules that is not it's not gonna. They're being told almost how to not make a list that's gonna make people feel bad. That's fine. Do
you know what this is strikingly similar to that I didn't realize? Remember our conversation about blast templates the other day?
Oh yes, that's true.
This is actually getting very close to that.
That is true.
Because my whole thing when I was talking about the heresy stuff, and we were talking about things we miss and didn't miss from previous editions, I'm like, I love blast templates, because when it's there's definitely feel bads, and you sometimes run into people. When I taught the guys at the store and how to do blast templates, because the store guys hadn't really played heresy, and I'm like, pretty simple. You get a sense when I'm shooting a blast. Okay, I kind of want to put it here, and ask your opponent, hey, because we're doing this together, we're working together. How many guys am I hitting?
Yeah.
And if I'm obviously hitting 25 models, and they go 2. I'm probably going to accept that. Maybe one, and go, okay, well, are you sure?
Yeah.
But I was never the one that would go get out of the way, let me take a look.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's where I go, there's when you're playing these games, there's a give and take.
Yeah.
But again, that's coming from somebody that's not a tournament player, where I'm like, it is your responsibility when you play to make sure the other guy's having a good time.
Yeah.
And that's and I know that can be difficult for some and all that, but I think that's part of where I prefer when the community takes care of that and works together in a positive, non-confrontational way, to be like, we're going to make sure that the community's having a good time, instead of letting the man go, this is how you have fun.
And I see that, and that's a fair opinion on that, for sure. I like having the confrontation taken out of much of my life as possible. I'm not a big fan of confrontation. So if I can just not have to be the one to be like, listen, I know technically that list is okay to bring, but it is not fun to bring, and it makes me feel bad. Because I know innately that's going to...
Does that feel confrontational, though?
Yeah, a little bit, because I know that it's going to make the other person feel bad. And that's why I don't.
Will it though? Maybe sometimes it might.
If you brought a list that you thought was just fun and you thought it was good because maybe you're not as socially aware as others.
Yep.
And you thought this was fun and you played the game and you thought the two of you had a great afternoon. We're having a really fun time, and all of a sudden the guy turns to you and he goes, "I hated this game because of you." Would you be like?
Well, that's a bit of a harsh way to put it. It might be the best way. But they're like,
if someone turned to you and was like, "I disliked the last 3 hours that we spent together because of the list that you brought."
No, for me, again, different personalities. That's a positive for me where I'm like, but like, I'm glad you brought that up because now, well, what would have been more fun?
Yes.
Let's talk about this. Let's make sure next time we play together, let's get another game. Like you owe me a game, and we're going to make damn sure that you have a lot of fun this time.
Absolutely.
And there's that give and take. For me, it's that kind of building in the community that...
For sure. And there's definitely that. And I think you're going to see more of that in a closer knit community. Like you're going to be able to talk to your friends about that. But innately, if someone that you maybe are not a great friends with, that you're just like met at the game store, thought you had a great time with, they turn around to you and say, "I did not enjoy these 3 hours we spent together because of the list you brought." I mean, if someone said that to me, I would feel bad.
Well, I mean, like Luke and I say that to each other at the end of every time we play.
It's true, but that's just because you're in each other's...
Not actually.
Not because of the list, because you don't like each other. So I like the fact that I could then have this, like, this sense of authority that's beyond me, that I can be like, "Oh, you can't bring that list, not because I don't like it, but because it's against the rules," and that feels like it smooths over a lot of the social, like, picadillos that you could have. It's the same thing like we were talking about, like with the templates and stuff. It's like, I would much rather have any mechanic that causes that kind of difference of opinion, that requires like a subjective decision making out of it, because it allows you to just be able to, like, go with, like, you can just, it goes along with the game. Like, I am rolling 3 dice with this heavy bolter. I don't have to determine how many, where it fits on there, and then I could just roll it. You see the dice, and it's like, there are, like you said, like we were talking about before, like, people could, like, try to change it with, like, hard to read dice or, like, quick dice rolls, but then
roll behind a building.
Exactly. But then
I got maximum hits again.
But at that point, they're trying to cheat you, versus someone just having a difference of opinion of how many people are under there. So maybe it's not like as drastic as 25-2. Maybe it's like, it looks to me like I'm hitting 6 guys.
Yep.
And then your opponent goes, "It looks to me like you're only hitting 4.
Yep.
Like, because of the way it's going. And it's like, no one is wrong in their, because they're both coming from an earnest place of feeling like they're being honest.
Yep.
And someone's going to get it right and someone's going to get it wrong. And it's like, it's not a table flip moment. It's not like, all right, then I'm going to collect my army and just go home. It's those moments where it's like, it just adds a friction in this enjoyable moment that doesn't need to be there. So that's why I like that. And I like that ability to just be like, I'll play a game that I don't have those moments of friction that are created by the mechanics.
Yeah, I think it's just differing experiences, because I've had similar experiences with more going like, I know that they're constantly putting out updates. Like, we both know that list is busted. We both know that list is dumb.
Yeah.
Like, can we not do this right now? But granted, there's always, then you get into the give and take of me being like, hey, I want to run this list that I know is super busted and kind of dumb right now. Do you mind, giving me the chance to play it?
Yeah. But I also think that you also, like, it's easier for you to talk to someone that you're going to play with and say, like, listen, I've got this air cav wing that's not great. Like, it's not broken. I just want to bring these flyers.
No, I'm fundamentally broken, unfortunately. So I'm like, the rules say I can't do it now, so now I'm mad at everybody.
But I'm just, like, I feel like it's easier to try to persuade someone to play a game with situation that was obviously not, that the rule wasn't created against.
But it might be easier, Philip, but that's not the point.
That's true. I mean, like I say this, and I had a kill team game that I did where we played with all grots. Because my friend was like, it would be fun to just run all grots. And we were like, technically you're only supposed to bring, like, I think 2 or 4 grots in an orc greenskin.
But you and your opponent had a conversation before the game started of what will be fun.
Yeah. But, it wasn't like he brought like a legal list of all grots, and I was like, that is not fun to play with. And he's like, well, I want to play my grots.
Yep.
And then you have to have that moment of being like, you have to like talk about it, and it becomes like I said, another moment of friction that may not be game ending. It may not be like relationship ending, but it just adds that layer of friction that I prefer not to have.
See, I think that ends up creating like the lifelong friendships. I think we've had different experiences. Maybe we've just had different experiences.
Yeah. Yeah. Because mine, when I have those kind of friction moments, it usually I don't like it, and then I find myself like shying away from it. Yep. So the less I can have those, the better I have. So like I hated 7th edition, which is why I think I'm most reticent about going into Horus Heresy. Is it based on the system that I had?
Like the best rule set that they ever put out.
Never.
The only problem with 7th edition is the codexes.
No, not even. I hate the mechanics of 7th edition.
That's the only thing Luke and I agree on.
Initiative.
It was so cool.
Sudden death.
Oh, it's so good. It's so
the
good.
The blast templates, scatter.
The flavor of the game.
No, all of it added feel bad, like little frictions that just didn't leave a good taste in my mouth.
It just for me, I think it just took some of the flavor. You know, you get your guardsmen charging in against gene stealers, and it's like the rules say that I charge, so I hit first. No, initiative was cool. The fast guy gives him the fast hands. I loved it. Love it. Continue to love it. Nah. So see, this is why I enjoy this hobby. Because you have two guys that have obviously differing opinions, different experiences. Have a conversation where we're not trying to murder each other or insult each other. I mean, that happens after the fact.
Jump you afterwards.
Just in the parking lot.
It's like, look at the blast template now! Whipping you with the sticks, like the whipping sticks, like, Gah!
Oh, jeez. Yeah, this has been an intriguing, enlightening conversation.
Yeah.
And that's basically, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Hopefully this
is... Is anyone still listening to us?
Probably not. There's always, I always say that, and there's always one person like, I'm still listening.
All three of you. If you're still listening, leave a comment down below. Also leave a comment for Luca.
That's how we'll get ready. So again, you must...
Start the comment with, I'm still listening, and then follow up with your question for Luca. But
you got to put Luca's name.
Yes, you got to put Luca's name. So I'm still, like, and address it to him. Just be like, I'm still listening, Luca. And then like, we'll get it. He'll be like, why is everyone still listening, Luca? So tell him that, and then compliment him. Say that you like his hair, like his beard. Compliment him. Cat shirts. Tell him you love his cat shirts, and then go into your question from there. But make sure you tell him you're still listening. Tell him that you like him and that you think he's great, and that that you have a question that you got to go for. So.
Hopefully you folks.
Look at that.
Perfect. This is so good.
And
like you've done this before.
Go to the Glacial Geek and hit subscribe too. Oh!
So either the Glacial Geek or Glacial Geek, depending on where you are.
You'll find Google it. I don't know how else to say it. Put it in the little search bar that's literally on every page, and just put Glacial Geek. It'll eventually. There's a logo that looks like this stupid face with goggles and like a hood. Click on it. It'll take you to the various places.
Weird that you live in Georgia and you're the Glacial Geek.
I know. Well, I started the channel in Alaska. Now I'm in Georgia, and it doesn't make any sense. But it already became a thing.
The humid geek.
Yeah, the humid. I was thinking the Southern Fried Geek for a while, but I can't change the branding too much. Lose it. I got dice with my face on them. I don't need more different dice.
Hopefully you enjoyed. Thanks for tuning in. Keep being awesome, and as always, happy wargaming.